Everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone. Before we get to the public comments, we are going to take one item out of order. Miami Country Day School has an application pending with the county for some modifications to their campus. And so they were kind enough to join us tonight and address their application and explain what they're doing. So if it's okay with Madam Manager, I'd like to call them up and they can speak briefly about the application, and we'll give the public a chance to comment.
Mayor, before they do, and since you're allowing the public to speak on that item, would you like me to read the decorum statement now, or would you like me to wait?
You can wait until the regular public comment.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Commission, for inviting us to attend. We appreciate the opportunity to reach out and the effort that you've made to make sure that we're sharing information with the community. My name is Mike McGuinn. I'm from Ziskovich Architects. I happen to be a resident of Biscayne Park. I live on 801 Northeast 113th. So I'm intimately aware of the community and been here a resident for 10 years, 10, 11 years. We're the architects for the master planning of the campus for Miami Country Day School. The school is going to be providing some additional amenities for their campus. They're a private school, as you may know, to remain competitive within their market. They're providing some additional items such as, I'm sorry, you can't hear me. I'll speak a little louder, and hopefully that's a little louder. So some of the amenities that they're going to be providing in the master plan that they're developing is expansion to their gym facility, a science building that they need to obviously remain competitive with all the STEM and other academic institutions in the area, as well as a performing arts center that they've been missing and improving some of their arts facilities. With that, as you know, some of the areas of their property are condensed, and they're going to be providing a new parking garage as part of their facility to accommodate the parking that's needed on campus, and also to amend and address some of the traffic issues and congestion issues on 6th Avenue. So that's the first initial part that the school would like to move forward with, as far as revising the way that some of the drop-off and pickup areas are dealt with, and part of that is providing that first new piece of construction. So that's what we're here to share with a little bit. If there's some questions as to where that's going, and if there's anything we can help to allay, if there's any concerns or any questions, we'd be happy to provide that information. I apologize I don't have large drawings and everything else. We were invited to come yesterday afternoon, and we just don't have that information here tonight. But we'd be happy to answer any questions or meet with anybody privately or through the Commission if that's available. Is there anything else that you'd like for me to address initially? Or
Perhaps you can, I know you don't have a site plan, but perhaps you can just go through.
Mayor, we have what you submitted to Miami-Dade County,
Okay.
if you'd like us to show it.
Yeah, no, I have it in. You can project it? Okay. Yeah, if you once they project it, if you can just walk through the new
Okay.
components, the new structures.
Yeah, if I see the letters, it is S1. Go down to like the 3rd page, basically.
If you want to explain it when it comes up, you may want to take the microphone with you so that
Sure, I apologize.
the community can hear.
Is there a way that you can pull it up just a little so you can see the entire site on there? So, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I apologize because I know that we all have my back to some of you. As you may be familiar, this is. Let me get on the other side. Hopefully I don't block you. If I do, just let me know. So to familiarize you with generally where we're at, this angled line here is where the canal is located. This is Northeast 107th Street, and this is Northeast 6th Avenue. To orient you a little bit to, as you probably drive by there all the time on 6th Avenue, this is the field area. So the main entrance is remaining at the school entrance here. There'll be a new science academic building down here on the south side facing towards 107th Street. There's a small building there that'll be modified, and then a new facility placed here. Down at the corner here, next to their existing gym, there'll be field house and dining facilities constructed here down the line. This is the first piece that'll be going into construction, and this is the area on the north side of that area. There's a private residence here that'll be remaining, and just so you're aware, the school has worked with them intimately, and they're very much supporting the project. This is the area on the north side, basically behind the old funeral home, if you're familiar with that area, and that's part of now the school's property. This is an area where there's parking. So what's going to happen here is that the traffic will be modified through this area and allow for exiting and coming back out to 6th Avenue. This is the area of the parking garage, all below the minimum required or the maximum required height variations or limitations through the county, which is 35 feet. And then the Performing Arts Center is located on the back. And the reason for that location is so that we have the ability to, one, shield the community, the residences that are directly across the canal, so they're not looking at a parking garage. The idea is that this will be the Performing Arts Center. It'll have a performing area as well as classroom areas. And what we've done is we've scaled the building down. Maybe we'll get to some of the elevations in a few minutes. But those areas then scale down and have sloped roofs for 2 and single-story areas to create those porches and everything, and that view similar and consistent to the vegetation and the consistent 2-story elevations along the canal. Again, trying to be as good neighbor as possible to the areas to the east. Can we go to the next slide?
I don't understand.
This is pretty good. This is describing, again, the traffic flow, and I know the graphics here are a little challenging to read and so forth. However, basically once they enter in, they'll be coming along, and the drop-off areas will be targeted back here underneath the garage under a sheltered area. So the idea is to take any queuing, remove it from 6th Avenue to pull everyone onto the campus and get them off of 6th Avenue. In addition to that, the school has volunteered and worked with the county through all of their traffic engineers. The school hired an independent traffic engineer to model and test all of those other areas. And in this area, there's width in the existing asphalt that they're going to restripe a portion of this area and allow for a center turn lane that's extended. So again, providing additional bypass for anyone going south, coming over the bridge, and going south and making connection to 103rd and then going over, continuing west, to have an additional bypass lane versus now where they sort of stack up in the road and congest those 2 lanes. Now that will be addressed, as well as bringing everyone back in and then having the support from the police force to guide all of that function. Same thing on the south side. That'll be staggered and then utilizing the center area for additional drop-off and pickup area. Again, trying to alleviate any congestion off of 6th Avenue. I'm sorry.
This is one thing that was bothering me. What about the traffic going north?
Traffic going north as well. So by extending all of those queuing areas and processing areas, there's 2 general areas that we're dealing with: cars that are waiting to drop off and cars that are dropping off. We're extending both areas. So the areas, for example, on the north side, as people traffic is going northbound, all of that area for processing has been extended. It's been almost tripled. And then on the south side, as everyone comes through, that area has been doubled. So to get everyone off of the street and back up onto the property. On the south side of the property, so if you're heading north and you're sort of coming from the shores area, if you will.
It's a dead stop right now when they do it.
All of that's been extended, and what we're doing is we're bringing everyone back around, and they're generally utilizing this area at the backside for drop-off and pickup. What we're going to be doing is allowing for the staggered drop-off and pick-up for middle school and elementary school, and then bringing people back around and then looping them back over here. So again, extending the queuing area and bringing everyone back off of 6th Avenue.
Have your traffic studies taken into account the increased number of, your anticipated increased number of students?
Absolutely. That was the first piece to the traffic study, and that's what we're required to show our modification for with all the county engineers.
Okay, thank you. So that you can almost guarantee that the 6th Avenue will not have one lane used for Miami-Dade Country School as it is now, essentially during the mornings and the afternoons. That won't happen.
The thought is that everyone is coming back around, and we've studied it as far as bringing everyone back around and then utilizing the available area that's here. The school, as you may be familiar, with the condition of what that road was, as sort of coming over the bridge, and then everyone sort of riding their bike through. The school improved that,
Yes, I know.
all of that public road on their own to again improve the processing time and the movement through that area, and that's all part of this overall scheme to improve that area and then eliminate the traffic on 6th Avenue.
Thank you.
How many, you're proposing an additional 250 additional students, or
I believe so, yes. I think it's 1,200, yes, 1,250.
1,250 total?
Total.
Okay, so
Total.
that's, okay. Okay.
And to address that point, if I may add to that, the school to do that has also added some property here to the north to allow that to be accommodated so that density on the site is accomplished as well, and allow for all the requisite play areas, classrooms, and so forth.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you before the meeting started, I mean, we're hearing of this now, and we may be impacted by what you're doing, maybe not, but I think to hear about it just now, and I think we need more time to look at the plan and discuss with you, if any, we have concerns, and the hearing is next week, and I don't know that we have time to do that. So, I'd like to hear from the commission, but my thought is to ask you to continue the hearing next week for 30 days, so that will give you an opportunity to come back to this commission and make a formal presentation so that we can better understand the project. And I'm not saying that there are serious concerns. There could be, but I just don't know without looking at everything and studying it. So and I understand that you're under a tight schedule and that it could impact your schedule, but I'd like to hear what the rest of the commission has to say.
Yeah, on the traffic study, right now, in Biscayne Park on Griffin Boulevard, that's where 107 turns into Griffin Boulevard if you're going west. Traffic backs up heavily when school in the morning and in the evening. Now, you're going to be adding more students. Is your traffic study show about the traffic on Griffin, right there?
The traffic study had to reach back to, on the north side, back up into that intersection and look at the impacts that are going to be happening.
But coming
there and
around that
trips.
intersection on the Griffin.
And that would include part of that access from Griffin and that input into the intersection. So that was included as part of the overall traffic study, with consideration as well that they're not the only school in this community that parents utilize that area. There is the St. Rose of Lima School. There are the Montessori schools in the area. There is Miami Shores Elementary. So there's other areas within the geographic area that have input and impact on that area. What the traffic study was intended to do and required by the county was to address how the increase in the student and the trips and the number of additional people that will be generated by the school, how that impacts that area, and that's been all considered in the overall traffic study.
I think the commission would like to see a copy of that.
And that traffic information is part of the overall documentation that was provided. And with respect to the delay, and we can talk about that a little bit further, as you are probably very well aware, the notice went out to the community that the project was submitted some time ago. It's been months that the school's been working through it with the county, with the various engineers and so forth. And then this notice again provides for the community meeting, which usually provides, I know you're just hearing about it now, but usually a 30-day notice. The school is diligently worked through that process with the county. In addition to that, as we all know who have kids, school starts and you got to have everything done before that time because that impact has to be addressed. So the goal of the school is to address those issues, address a lot of these traffic issues and other improvements first with relationship to the community, And to do that, we need to get moving as quickly as possible, get through the county approval to allow us to complete the documents and go in for our building permits, and then get this realized before the start of not this coming school year, but the following school year. So we're kind of on a tight timeline, so we respectfully request that that be considered. And
I
move
have
forward.
a few more questions.
Absolutely, I'm sorry.
One of our residents emailed me some questions and concerns that they had. Your plans for the parking garage, it says 4 decks. Is that going to be 5 stories or 4 stories?
No, let me explain that. I'm glad you asked that question. I don't know if you have the elevations here, but 4 decks really means 3 elevated decks. The ground floor is counted as a deck.
Okay.
There's 3 elevated decks. The maximum height that we can accomplish is 35 feet within the parameters that is required by the county. And so we've accommodated that. In addition to that being within that limitation, and as you may know, the Franco Center at the middle, the center building, as well as the other buildings, all are about that 35 feet height elevation. So here you can see, can you go down just a little bit, or I'm not sure. Okay, so this is the elevation as it faces south. You can see this is the performing arts area, and then we're wrapping that around. Again, the school doesn't want to see a garage either, to be quite honest with you. They're in the business of having an educational facility. They want to look and feel like a school. You can see here, this is sort of that backside as it steps down. We've created this facade where it goes from 2 stories down to 1 story, pitched roof and so forth with dormers and fenestration like a porch and so forth. This is what's facing the canal and facing back towards Biscayne Park residents. And you can see that here, sort of in this other oblique angle. If you can go back up north a little bit, up to the top of the sheet. Okay. So here, this is what will be facing back towards 6th Avenue. We have the funeral home will be is existing in this area. As you know, this is approximately 100 or so feet back away from the edge of the property. The intent is to provide screening material here for the garage that will have plants and other things growing on it. In addition to that, to use opportunities for select areas in between to provide panels for artwork to be displayed. Not advertisement, not sort of graphic displays, but items for art to be displayed, so that it's more like art in public places, much like Biscayne Park has tried to do in several areas. To provide those areas, again, to convey the idea that this is an arts center, it's a performing arts center, it's not a garage, like you would see in other areas.
Okay. One of the other questions was Miami Country Day has nighttime activities and sporting events, and their stadium lights are, bad enough. But what's the main concern is at nighttime, people driving in, parking, their headlights flash, because if it's open to Biscayne Park, you're going to have lights moving back and forth, and plus the garage will be illuminated. Is there going to be some kind of a barrier so that it isn't projected back into Biscayne Park?
Another great question. Can we go back to the site plan, because I think I'll be able to more graphically describe it better there. Basically, as you can tell, as was seen there, the garage the school has made a very conscientious effort to put the garage in the middle of the site, and then wrapping it with the classroom areas and the lower scale functions towards the east, towards the community. So the idea is that as you enter on a performance evening, you would enter back through this main entrance, be led into the garage. You go right in, and all this area where the Performing Arts Center is shielding the community from the lights in the garage. So traffic lights and all of those functions would be shielded from that access.
So people on the other side of the canal won't be seeing
they will be seeing that the
building, but no lights from that building shining over to
They
them.
might see lights on in the classrooms that are facing that side.
Well, the main concern is the parking garage part.
Right.
Because with headlights, as people driving through that parking garage with headlights swinging and over there like a beacon of
Right.
a lighthouse or something.
What type of landscaping buffer or fencing material do you have along the canal, if any?
Along the canal, the intention is that this would have a landscape buffer similar to what's developed on the existing area. I don't know if you've ever walked that area, but it's a very sort of tranquil path area, and they have low native landscaping. The school is very much about an environmental curriculum, so they've incorporated all of those types of elements along this edge, and the intent is that would also continue along this side as well. This would be intended to be sort of passive drawing areas and art areas for the kids.
Now, I remember seeing that at some point that there was chain link fencing that was called for by the canal. Is that, am I mistaken?
Well, there will be fencing back along this area. This is all existing. That's chain link now, and it's covered up. The requirement right now is for that to be a fencing material. That final solution hasn't been necessarily selected at this point in time.
So there's a possibility.
It's more about the buffer.
There's a possibility that you could change that material.
There's a possibility of doing that, or maybe like a vinyl coated that would disappear, like a black or a green or something like that, consistent with the rest of the site.
And I think those are the types of things that we want to have a dialogue. I don't know necessarily we can do it now, because I think, again, we need to take the time to look at the detailed plans.
Well, and some of those details may not necessarily be in these plans. As you're familiar, this is for planning and zoning approval, and I'm sure the school is intended to be a good neighbor to everyone. As we've broken down the scale, they've spent money to make sure that those items have been addressed. Addressing the type of fencing and the color and so forth, and the type of landscaping. I'm sure I'm speaking for you, Gary, but I think that's what the school's here to commit for, and that's why they've come here tonight.
Another question. With the east elevation, I wonder if we might go back to that.
Sure.
The diagram.
Sorry, we're making you jump back and forth.
Maybe I'm misreading the plan, but it seems to me that the east elevation does have part of the parking garage extending from one side.
Right.
And so that will have vertical plantings, or what? It's that the one right down here. So this would be facing the canal.
It's a little confusing because this is really sort of an oblique plan, oblique elevation. So what you're looking at, this is actually from the north side.
Yeah.
So you're going to be seeing this part facing back towards we call the Spectrum property, that property to the north, and then you'll be seeing the end of this building that's extending out.
No, I was talking about the diagram below. That's the eastern.
Diagram below here. Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
see just a piece of this here. There's low walls that will be coming up to protect, so you won't be seeing headlights or anything like that flashing back through. And we can provide some some screening similar to this that would be provided so that it would block some of that view as well.
Yeah, something akin to the parking garages on Miami Beach that are covered in
Correct.
green.
That's what's
like that.
intended here. And we also have some fairly significant existing trees that are here that will be maintained back in this corner. There's a gumbo limbo. There's a few other trees that are, good size, and that will be in this area that will be maintained per the environmental codes of the county.
Any other comments? Commissioner Ross?
I think, as you were saying, much of what impacts here on the village is going to be in the operations side of it. And I don't think we've ever had a dialogue about it as the school has grown. For example, when the lights went up, we didn't really talk about it, but it really did. It does have a significant impact on our homeowners, particularly those on the canal, and I happen to be one of them. So I would like to have a more extensive dialogue with the school and the decision makers at the school in order to make sure that you are being good neighbors and that we are sheltering our residents from an overuse, an intense use of that property.
We're more than happy. I mean, our goal is to. Sorry. I'm Gary Butts. I've been with the school now for 3 years, coming on 4. I'm the chief operating officer of the corporation. Our first goal is to do everything we can to fix the traffic. We live with that traffic as well, and that's the parking garage and the queuing. We want to get it off the street onto our property so 6th Avenue functions, and we spend a lot of time with the traffic engineers. The operations of the school, again, we want a beautiful campus. We want you to see a beautiful campus from whatever direction you're looking. And we want to be as neighborly as we can be with our operations. We take that into consideration with almost everything we do. This is where we live as well, our community. And, we operate from 6:30 in the morning till some events are as late as, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So we do everything we can to try to accommodate the people who live in this community. And we would be very receptive to sitting down and talking about our operations, twice a year if you want to.
Anything from anybody else?
Any member from the public want to speak? You can come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Sorry, I'm speaking here, but,
Yeah, no, just come up to the podium.
Hello, I'm Mrs. Gary, and I live on 109th in Biscayne Park. And
Can you
I'm
use the
Mrs. Gary, and I live on 109th in Biscayne Park. This, I don't mind that you have a school there because I grew up with kids that went there years ago. But the whole thing is just like Ms. Ross said, I live further east. And when you have games there and everything, and all the noise that we can hear that far, so I can imagine the people that live right there on the canal, what they hear. And you can see the lights that far, almost to 10th Avenue. Another thing, how many feet is that from the ground up to the top of that parking lot? Don't tell me in levels, how many feet?
Yeah, it's 35 feet to the top of the deck, and then it's another 3.5 to 4 feet.
In other words, the top deck is 35 feet where you
That's
park,
correct.
but there's cars gonna park on top of that?
That's correct.
So then there's gonna be cars shining over,
Well,
or you're gonna have a wall?
There's walls provided around the perimeter to not allow for the lights to go from any of those areas off.
And also on Sixth Avenue, are they gonna be another lane, or are they gonna keep the same lanes? I know you're gonna put something in the middle, you're gonna put another lane, move the sidewalks over and things like that. Who pays for that? The
No.
school or Dade County?
Should I? Well, basically what's going to happen.
Yeah, maybe make your statements and then you can answer the questions.
Okay.
I just,
Was there any other questions or?
No,
I'm
I
sorry.
just think that because all of us go through there every day, and as you live here, you should know it's terrible traffic. Another thing, there's 250 more students. It's going to be a lot more traffic into Biscayne Park.
okay, thank you.
And I don't want this to fall off.
Do you want me, should I respond or?
Yeah, why don't you respond to the question and then.
With reference to the question of the lane, the width of the asphalt is already there to allow for it. There's a turn lane that's provided a little further north. What we're going to be doing is restriping that area at the expense of the school. They are going to be doing that and modifying that area. We did not want to go through sort of the extensive impact to the road at any given time to sort of widen the overall road and then add even more traffic through that zone, because then they're all going to collect and be a challenge on 6th Avenue when you get to the bridge. So we don't want to create that condition. What we want to do is provide that center lane so that everyone that's going into that area can get out of the way of everyone that needs to bypass and go through. So the through lanes, the 2 lanes, either north or south, would be kept open, and then we would keep anyone turning into the property in the center lane, and then get as many people onto the campus as possible.
Hi, my name is Danielle Forsyth. I live at 10932 Griffin. So we're right now right across from the house that sounds like it's going to be the Performing Arts Center. But the property next to us is everything that they see is chain link fence. And on the residence side, that's all you see. The greenery does not hide the chain link fence. Things get caught in the fence. There's trash in the fence. So it doesn't look very good at all. And so we're concerned that now our nice lush view, I mean, we like the music from the school and everything else, but now if we're gonna have chain link fence, when we bought our property 2 years ago, that's not what we were expecting. So our concern really is the chain link fence, and also, right now we have some protection from the trees and where the outdoor performances are, but where is with the new art center, are the performances moving inside, or are they gonna be outside, but closer to the canal because they're gonna be at that center?
If I can answer. I apologize. If you go back to the site plan, I can sort of point it out more specifically. But the performing area is going to be inside the building. So then there will be classrooms that will be wrapping that area, separating that from even the site. So to point to it within the building, the performance area is going to be inside, and it will be right here next to the garage, because that's a sort of an open space within the building. And then there'll be classrooms, labs, art classrooms, music rooms, and so forth, wrapping around this backside, again, to bring the scale down as you go back to this area. And then the intention that this will be landscape sort of plaza spaces that kids will be outside, drawing nature and so forth, and participating along that edge.
But what is going to be because you have to fence the kids in, I have a 10-year-old, so I know.
Yep,
You
yes,
have
sir.
to fence them in, so I'm concerned of what our view is going to be. If it's going to be chain link, that's not very pretty.
Understood.
Just so I can respond, one of my goals is to get rid of as much chain link fence on our campus, and I've been working on it for 3 years. There's just, the canal is a place that we're gonna turn into a beautiful site. When I met Mike 3 years ago, he convinced me that that should be the beautiful side of our campus, and we have been acquiring property and working back in that area, that that's gonna become a beautiful area. And I can assure you, if at all possible, I will get rid of all the chain link fence and put nicer fencing and shrubbery and make it so that it's something you would enjoy looking at.
The goal is to carry the pattern that's developed, that we helped develop with on 107th Street, and that look and streetscape onto those other areas of the campus. It just can't all be done at once.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina Alonso. I'm your neighbor across the canal at 11060 Griffin Boulevard. When I first moved into my home 6 years ago, I had a beautiful view of lush landscaping, not too much noise. Since then, my current view is a parking lot with a chain link fence. Originally, there was some landscaping. That landscaping has not been kept up. Usually there's a lot of debris. The noise level has significantly increased with the cars that are parking there, the lights shining, and at times when that parking lot is not secured, with students coming in after hours to use the parking lot as a social spot, so to say. So my concern is now with your expansion, you're saying you're going to do landscaping. Well, is it really going to be landscaping that is maintained? Is it going to be landscaping that is going to be covering up the chain link fence? In terms of the operation, what's the issue with the noise level, not only with regards to the parking garage, but also with regards to the Performing Arts Center? For example, on Monday evening, and I'll say Miami Country Day, you put on great musical performances. I enjoy on Saturday not having to go over to the school, but just walking out into my backyard and enjoying the music, and it's quite spectacular. But there are practices that lead up to your performances. And on Monday evening, there was music that was blaring until well after 10:30 in the evening, very late. I had to clear my TV to keep the noise out, and eventually I wasn't even able to sleep. I go to sleep well before 10:30. So my concerns are twofold. Again, the chain link fence, and to the noise level.
And if I can just try to address some of the noise level issues, that's part of the reason why the school is looking for that interior area, that performance area to provide for the arts. Right now they're so challenged that some of those areas will still be used, probably will be used for performances, but to move a lot of the practices in other areas, give them a venue indoors so they can control that, because as you can imagine, even practices in this weather, hot, humid areas and raining and so forth, just makes it more of a burden on the school. So they're looking to improve that area within the facility.
Hey, gosh, imagine my good fortune. I came here to prove Fred Jonas wrong, that I'm not a coward. And I hear a topic that I'm very familiar with. I live at 10831 Northeast 8th Court. My name's Drew Dilworth. So I, too, hear the noise on Saturdays. I actually find it to be charming. I send my kids to Country Day, have since they were in kindergarten, and was also involved in some of the focus studies on what they plan to do here. And the operational issues, the landscaping issues that you guys are concerned about, I suggest you do one thing. Go look at the road that they created and how beautiful it is compared to 3 years ago. That's all you need to hear or see to believe what they're telling you. But the bigger picture here, the plan that they have is such a huge thing for this community, all of North Miami. They really want to turn this school into something more than it is today. By having a performing arts center in our community, drawing us to go see performances that we don't have access to now, is huge. It's a huge thing. They put a lot of thought into this. They obviously have to have somewhere for people to park,
But the idea that within our backyard, we're in addition to be able to go to concerts, we'll be able to go to and have access to a performing arts center. I mean, it's huge. So I'm lucky. So I get two birds with one stone, and I'm going to prove that Fred is wrong, that I'm not a coward. So and probably take some rocks in my back for it. But also have the good fortune of telling you that this was well thought out. They did intense focus groups within their school, developing this plan, and believe me, the operational issues and other concerns that you're raising, I have no doubt they'll address, and all I suggest you do is go look at that street on 107th or 103rd Street. It used to flood, and now it is gorgeous. The entrance to that school is just amazing. So anyways, thanks very much.
Well, now that we've heard from their lobbyist, you know, the platitudes about they're good neighbors, they're, oh, Gary Kuehl, 777 Northeast 111th Street. Considering the fact that it's taken 3 years to address the chain link fence, which is still there, doesn't lead me to believe that they're interested in us any more than themselves. The road serves them, not us. Anyway, as far as the garage, on the top of that garage, I assume that you're going to have lighting, correct? And that's going to be above the 3-foot or 4-foot height of the perimeter wall, correct?
That's correct. The intent is to keep that low. I apologize, I mean to answer your question.
That's fine.
Low lighting, and the school is very environmentally sensitive as well as the community. So we're going to be providing night sky friendly and full cutoff fixtures. So the intent is to put that light down, not let it be a glare spot for anyone in the surrounding.
Well, nevertheless, at 35 feet, you're going to see it, just like you see the stadium lights.
Those lights have a little different purpose. They're sort of lighting up a much larger area. What we're going to be doing is keeping those light fixtures down lower so that it's not as big a concern in that way. And then again, trying to provide the cutoff and looking at the studies and looking at the angles so that they're not fixtures that you're necessarily looking up and seeing the pictures across the way.
Now, okay, now you're still going to see it. Now, as far as the traffic, the issue is not people dropping off so much as when people pick up. And going northward on 6th Avenue in the evening when that school's discharging, you have a policeman out there and traffic is back up. It's a major inconvenience. You're going to have something like a 30% increase in students, which means in all probability a 30% increase of people that'll be dropping off or picking up their kids. I live at 111th, just off of Griffin. And in the morning, I sometimes have to sit through 2 light changes to get through the intersection at 113th Street. And no, not all the people are dropping off kids, but I see a lot of kids in the cars. They may be going to St. Lima as well. But an awful lot of people, as you well know, use the end of 100 and Griffin, the end of Griffin where it turns at the golf course. You know, I'm not a golfer, so that didn't come to mind quickly. And that is only going to get worse. My biggest concern with this, aside from the fact that I really don't have great faith in the platitudes, because we've had the noise, we've had the lights, we've had the chain link fence, we've had the traffic. None of these issues have ever been taken care of. I don't see any benefit to this. I don't get free tickets. I don't get anything out of this. It's just more traffic, more structure, more lights, more noise. And I really don't believe that Miami Country Day is really making an effort to appease our community and work with our community and work with other communities that have to go through that area. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello? John? My name's Steve Bernard, 860 Northeast 115th Street. There's a couple different issues. One is property values. Now, I know that when there was an issue in North Miami Beach about Crandon Park and a 6-story building that was going to cut off the sun to the park, this commission decided wasn't important enough to stop. I know when we had the opportunity to have wood FPL poles instead of concrete, and FPL said, yes, you can have it, you said, no, we'll go with concrete. So now we've got property values relating to the school. I will say my daughter went to Country Day for 12 years. One of the reasons why we chose to live in Biscayne Park was because the taxes are low. Millage may be high, the taxes are low. And that allowed us to send our kids to Country Day. And I know several families that have done that, and I think that the school being what it is can only improve and help those values. The idea that you might not be sensitive to the neighbors, you're not interested in anybody but yourself, I don't believe it. Now, my daughter no longer goes there. I have no interest. It doesn't help me. It doesn't hurt me. But I do know that what you guys have done with the campus has brought it up significantly, and I think you've taken pains not to affect the neighbors. And if people complain about the lights on the field, well, this has nothing to do with it. If they complain about the chain link, the parking, or the vistas, now's your opportunity to sit down with them and say, you want our acceptance, you want our approval, here's what we can do. Here's what we would like. Here's what our neighbors across the canal need. Now, the hearing's coming up. You may not have that opportunity, but I think you can get a commitment tonight and say, this is what we'd like, and it will make us happy neighbors, and if we're happy, you're happy. I do believe in your platitudes because I've seen it. I've seen the physical plant, seen the operation. I know that it is a world-class school, and it can only get better. One question I have is, you're here for something. You need to get a variance?
From this
From the county. What is it that the hearing is about?
Well, any improvements to the school site, because of code requirements, we have to go through the
Right. And you're not asking for any height variances, setback variances. You're not asking for any variances other than the land use change.
There are some modifications and there are some variances for it. The variances are not related to height variances. They're related to, actually a lot of them are cleaning up some of the existing conditions on the rest of the facility.
Okay.
So, and some of the land area variances. There's no height modification variances. We're below all of those requirements.
Good. Okay. And I hope the fact that 2 of our commissioners live on the canal and that none of the commissioners have children of school age doesn't affect their decision. But I do hope, and I do think, and I know that just as with the school at the church, you know, if it's going to be happening, you may as well take the opportunity and get from them some of the concessions that may not have happened as soon as you would have liked or we would have liked, but now's a chance to do it. I will tell you that having a parking garage will help the traffic tremendously, because one of the problems that happens, I know it from 12 years of picking my daughter up, is when you turn onto 107th Street to pick your kid up, there's a whole bunch of cars there and people are trying to park. So if your operations can say, if you're going to park to pick up your kid, go to the garage, that's going to keep that lane from pulling in. And I'm excited. I think it's a good project.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I just want to reiterate, I agree with what the speaker said. I think the school is a great asset for the community, and I think the project is excellent, but there may be little things that we would want to ask you for example, the chain link fence along the canal. And I think the way to do that, not that you don't have good intentions, but the way to do that is to have you agree to put that as a condition in the approval, so that at least we have some teeth and some assurance that it's going to get done. So that's why I asked that if you can agree to delay the hearing next week for 30 days, that will give us an opportunity to sit down with you. You can come back to the commission the first meeting in June, give a full presentation. We can iron out all the details so that the next month you can go forward and get your approval, and we won't have to show up and object if that's the consensus of the commission. Look, I think that it looks like a wonderful project, but I just think there's some little things that will benefit the residents that we may want to discuss. And I don't think that we are prepared to discuss them tonight.
And the only reason why we're putting you up against the wall on this, because we never, as it was stated, Biscayne Park never knew that this was happening until the material came out from the county to some of our residents. Hindsight, what you should have done a month ago, is letting us know we would have had this all ironed out. But it didn't happen. You can't go backwards. So we're asking you to give us the opportunity, just like with the mayor's center, to go ahead and work with you. Because, I mean, I look at it myself. I think it's a great idea, but if we don't have the opportunity to work with you and have things ironed out, then I'm against it.
Any other comments?
I think that some of the things that that are of interest to us may not be a part of that approval process with the zoning board for the hearing on the 29th, but I'm relying on our mayor, since this is his sort of area of expertise. It is important that we come to a meeting of the minds on those issues, and however we can get there so that you can accomplish your goals and we accomplish ours, I'd be in favor.
Yeah, it is part of the process that they're going through. Is a modification to their site plan, and in conjunction with that, there's a recorded declaration, correct? And that declaration has conditions in it, and you're seeking to modify that. So as part of our dialogue, we can have inserted into that declaration, or inserted into the site plan, conditions that we want. Maybe there are none, but we have to have that conversation. And unless we do it at this stage, before you get approval, there's no teeth. We have no way of enforcing anything. And again, not to say that you're not willing to work with us, but we need to have that assurance that if we ask for something, it's going to get done. Maybe it's continued maintenance. There are many things that we need to look at and discuss. And so again, I understand your tight time frame. I don't know that 30 days is going to push you off that far, but that's my opinion, and I would advise staff to, if you don't voluntarily agree to do that, I would advise staff to show up and prepare a statement for the hearing to express the village's concerns.
And we've provided a draft statement that's in your backup for item 8E tonight, and if the commission, and I think it addresses a lot of those issues that have been brought up by both the commission as well as the residents tonight, the chain link fence, some of the buffering concerns because they're not shown on the plans, and of course that traffic impact. If you're okay with that statement, we're prepared to go deliver that statement on the public record at the zoning meeting.
No, but it's more than that public statement. It's asking that the matter be continued for 30 days, because I don't know that what's in that public statement covers everything that we're concerned about.
Sure.
So it's asking for a continuance so that we could examine the site plan and then go back and hopefully meet with them, and so that when the hearing goes back the next month, we'll all be in support and there'll be no issues.
I'd like to recommend that we do both at the hearing. I deliver the statement, read the statement, as well as ask for the continuance, because in case it is not continued, at least have the opportunity to share with the board at least some of our concerns, so at least it's on the record and is under consideration by the board that evening.
Sure. Respectfully, if I can offer this for the school, I'm sorry. If there is an opportunity that the school can make a commitment to address those items, specifically items that you may have addressed in the draft statement, I understand the notion that some of those items may not have been fully covered. But addressing the comments, we took notes of those items here. A lot of them are fairly repetitive as far as the notion of dealing with the fencing along the perimeter, the landscape buffering as it goes forward. We've made those attempts in the architecture, and I think everybody understands how the building is stepping down and going back to those areas. Addressing some of the operational issues as far as cleaning up some of the edge perimeter and some of those areas. If the school would be willing to meet with you and draft language as a commitment to address those specific items, would that be something that you can support and then provide those items as part of the overall application? We can discuss that with the county, showing that obviously we're working with you to resolve those items. I don't think the county, the items that you're discussing aren't necessarily covered in the site plan approval. You're correct, but those items can be made somewhat conditions of the overall approval, and the school's willing, I think, to do those items and accomplish those items to the satisfaction of the community. Specifically, those items that were discussed, they're really, in the grand scheme of things, not very large items. There are conditions that the school has to consider as far as waiting for the cost and other issues. But I think, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, Gary, but I think the school would be willing to do that. Whether that happens now or it happens in 30 days, I think the results will probably be pretty much the same as far as commitment from the school to improve the perimeter fencing along that edge, increasing the buffer and the landscaping along that area, and beautifying that edge, and making sure that operationally, if there's debris and other items, that those items get cleaned up so that they are a good neighbor to the community. Would that be acceptable?
I mean, I don't think there's enough time to really know that that's the only issue. I mean, I know that was the majority of the comments tonight were about the canal and the fence and the material, but I'd like more time to look at the plan and make sure that there are no other issues. And I don't know that we have time to do that before the hearing.
How tight is your timetable? Is construction set to begin
Yes.
after May 29th?
Well, after May 29th, we have to have the approval to allow us to be able to move forward and submit for the required permits. That will take a time to, this is the entitlements to this opportunity. Then we then need to submit for the building permits, achieve the permits, get it priced, and then get a contractor on board and get it constructed so that it's in place. And the whole goal is, as we all know and I mentioned earlier, is to have all of these improvements, especially dealing with the traffic in those areas, in place before school starts. You know, in August and school starts, we've got to have all those items in place so that normal operations can begin again. So that's why we're kind of up against the timeline. And to be fair, these items were noticed when we submitted the application some months ago, back in October of 2013, and then that notice was sent out. I know because I live in the community, I received the notice. And then the notice was sent out several weeks ago as far as the notice for this item. So that's why respectfully we're hoping that we can come to an agreement on addressing some of those items that were requested tonight so that we can go forward in good faith that we're addressing those items. And I think the school would be more than happy to meet between now and the planned board meeting on the 29th, the community meeting, to address any of those concerns if there's maybe a special committee or anybody else that we could sit down with and sort of review the plans with. There's not an intention to not share with you everything in the documents, which is why we voluntarily came here tonight.
Okay, so I mean, if the consensus is that they can sit down with the manager and try to iron out any issues, and if we don't have time and we don't have an agreement on the issues, then we'll go forward and ask for a continuance at the hearing. Does that work for everyone?
In the interim, we should be conveying to the manager what our concerns are
Exactly.
and all of the questions or concerns we receive from our residents.
Correct.
Mayor, I would like to have you involved in this because this is your expertise.
Yeah, and my issue is that I'll be out of the country next week, so I don't know that I could take the lead.
That would be kind of tough.
But I'll do as much as I can this week. Okay, so thank you for coming. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for inviting us.
All right.
Yeah. Just one question then. I just have one question. I wonder, in your study, in the traffic study, did it take into account the possibility that there will be another 200 students being dropped off at the Church of the Resurrection? Because that will impact the amount of traffic that goes along 6th Avenue and Griffin as well.
We're required to coordinate with the county. The county has jurisdiction over all of those areas, and they coordinate a lot of those efforts and look at that impact and require all of those areas to be considered. I can't speak specifically to those additional students at with that potential application. I'm not aware of that application. But all of that is considered by the county traffic engineers and public works department, and we've worked with them for the last 6-7 months going through various requirements that they've had us add to the traffic study at various times.
Okay, thank you.
And we'd be happy to have, when we meet with the city manager, if that's the way going forward, we'd be happy to have our traffic engineer there to sort of run through and have a very complete description as to exactly how it was studied, what we went through with the county, and how we got to the decisions that were made, all again with the best interest of the community.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a card? Do you have a card?
All right. we're going to start with public comments, good and welfare.
I'm just going to read the decorum statement, if I may, Mayor.
Yes.
All comments must be addressed to the commission as a body and not to individuals. Any person making impertinent or slanderous remarks or who becomes boisterous while addressing the commission shall be barred from further audience before the commission by the presiding officer unless permission to continue or again address the commission is granted by a majority vote of the commission members present. No clapping, applauding, heckling, or verbal outbursts in support of or in opposition to a speaker or his or her remarks shall be permitted. No signs or placards shall be allowed in the commission chambers. Please mute or turn off your cell phones or pagers at the start of the meeting. Failure to do so may result in being barred from the meeting. Persons exiting the chambers shall do so quietly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So anyone that wants to speak, if you can come up, state your name and address for the record, and we'll have a two-minute minute. Nobody?
What's the agenda?
This is public comment. You can speak about anything you want.
Dave, you want to remind them that because it's an ordinance, they'll have a chance to talk about sanitation then? They don't have to talk about it now, they can wait. Whatever they want.
Right. Yeah, we have the ordinance on the sanitation contract is later in the agenda, and because you'll be able to speak at that time, but if you'd like, you can also speak during the public comment now, so it's your choice.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to read because I'm not a very good public speaker, so please bear with me. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all, the residents of Biscayne Park, who are here today to express their discontent or... Oh, sorry. My name is Elena Orozco, and I live at 735 Northeast 115 Street. To express their discontent or their content with the way the Commission has proceeded with the Public Works Sanitation Department issue. This whole issue came to light to my husband and I only because one of the workers of the Sanitation Department brought it to our attention. This is more or less a month ago. We were informed that a meeting was taking place regarding the outsourcing of our sanitation department. To our dismay, we decided to attend, and in the meeting, the city manager explained the reasons why the Commission should vote for this change. Several of the residents attending the meeting expressed their full discontent to this proposal. First, and mainly because we were not told that this was going to happen, and second, because the residents' voice has not been heard. I would like to read to you our petition that was passed around the village to our residents, and here's how it reads. We, the residents of Biscayne Park, want to express our strong disagreement with the Commissioner's 3-2 decision on May 6, 2014, to outsource our Public Works Department. By signing this petition, we want to show our support for the workers of the Public Department and demand this decision be overturned and our same system be kept in place. Residents stood up and expressed their desire to keep the Public Works Department, yet their voices were ignored. It is time we are heard, and people of Biscayne Park have a say in the decisions affecting us all. We have a total of 326 signatures from the residents who are owners of property here in Biscayne Park. We ask that you overturn this decision and again listen to our voice. Thank you.
Thank you.
She should turn that into the clerk.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. I'm talking about the idea of outsourcing. I know the ordinance is coming later, but what I'd like to talk about right now is the process and how we came to this situation. We hired our village manager in the end of November, and by January 7th, there was already an RFP going out for outsourcing sanitation. When we were looking for a new manager, I think everybody's looking for somebody that's enthusiastic, that believes in our village, the type of village we have, and somebody that wanted to put their whole heart into it. And I remember when Heidi was first hired, the first thing I said to her is, start thinking now of how you can keep public works in-house. And she said to me, well, that's why annexation is so important. And yet, within 2 months, we were already doing an RFP for outsourcing. It had nothing to do with annexation. I don't know if we ever will annex, but that's not going to affect Public Works. The part that bothers me with the administration is the lack of transparency for this community. I got up at one of the meetings when you first put the solid waste issue on the agenda because nobody even knew what that was. And people who came to the meetings didn't even know what it was. At the mayor's morning coffee meeting on May 2nd, Dan Keyes said to you, you know, you have exercise things on the webpage, but there's nothing about this issue. And you said, I'm going to get on that right away. Now, to this day, because I keep checking, there is nothing on the webpage. The only thing that you have is something listed as April and May happenings. And if you go to that and click someplace else, you'll see that it says right now that at the May 6th Commission meeting, the Commission is going to be deciding whether or not to outsource.
You wrap it up?
Yeah. There had to be a way to get this out to the community. You have 300 signatures in a petition that started a couple of days ago. But this administration has done nothing to really inform the public.
Barbara, with all due respect, a flyer went on every person's door. We had 2 workshops. We had, excuse me. Okay, but that's fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm talking now because I don't want to stay for 3 hours. Drew Dilworth, 10831 Northeast 8th Court. I wore my Teflon suit, and I'm here to support what you guys did a couple weeks ago. My friend Barbara made a good point. I think that the focus here, although I don't think she intended to make this point, but I see it, the focus of this as being one of 2 choices. Maintaining our independence as an independent community, or continuing to travel down a path of, you know, frankly, incompetent financial management. And I've spent my career in business restructuring. I've seen the bad stories, and that's the path this community has been on for some time. All you have to do is look at the reserves, look at the lack of resources to actually purchase the equipment that we would need to go in-house without going out and raising new funds, and that answers your question. So this is not a debate about whether you privatize or keep something in-house. This is a debate about how you secure the long-term independence of this village. And that's job number 1. And sometimes to do that, you have to make difficult choices. Okay, along the way, we obviously have to consider the impact that this has on employees. Frankly, I've advocated for years that we have not paid our employees enough money for the job that they've done. You've never heard the public rancor about that. And we haven't. And I think the message should be clear to each and every one of these employees that have been long-term employees of our community that they still have a job here. We can take that same talent and utilize it in different ways to support this community. And the final thing is the idea about people just knee-jerk reaction to privatization. Well, let's not forget that we privatized cutting the medians months ago, quite some time ago, and guess what? The sky is still blue, the sun still comes up, the breeze feels good on your cheeks, and the grass is getting cut. It was obviously a decision that had to be made, possibly a tough one, but it hasn't changed our lives. What we're talking about here is taking out the garbage. Who's going to do it? Not whether it gets done. And so long as we are going to be loyal to our long-term employees, which absolutely should be right up there with being fiscally responsible to the long-term sustainability of this community, you guys made the right choice. Unqualifiedly.
Let's wrap it up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Good evening. Noah Jacobs, 1090 Northeast 119th Street. First of all, before actually Drew walked out, I was going to tell him he looks better than I do, and it's good to see him. I'm here to talk about the outsourcing, and I also would rather talk about it now while there's a large crowd, because I fear the crowd might dissipate as time goes. What we're talking about when we talk about outsourcing is what's called an enterprise fund. as residents and homeowners, we pay a separate fee each and every month for garbage. That fee is not supposed to affect or impact the budget of the village at all. It's supposed to be totally separate from the cost of the village. I heard about 2 weeks ago, May 6th, I heard various commissioners talk about the impacts of the Affordable Care Act. I heard about the impacts of the cost of the trucks, the cost of the equipment, cost of various other things. All of those things, if they are specifically enterprise fund issues, should be separate and apart from the budget of the village. So talking about how we're going to make all of this money off of this enterprise fund is an improper use and an improper understanding of the economics of the situation. If we get a franchise fee for the enterprise fund, it is supposed to go back into the enterprise fund, which is supposed to lessen the cost that we all pay, each and every one of us, for the purposes of this specific service. Understanding that, you also have a situation where if we outsource this, there's not a whole lot left that makes us different from anybody else, because all of our services are slowly being outsourced. There's absolutely no purpose, and while I appreciate some of the staff members we have staff members at the administrative level that might no longer be necessary. If we no longer have services and we just keep the administration, we're going to create a situation where we're just paying administration for the sake of paying administration. If we're going to pay people, let's pay the workers that are doing the collection and maintaining the services that we all like and appreciate, and that's the reason we're here. We're here because we say we're different. Let's remain unique and different and appreciate the people that are doing those things that make us unique and different.
Okay, thank you, Noah. Thank you. You just hold the applause, please. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Paul Spence, 10905 Northeast 8th Avenue. He said just about everything, but in a longer version, right? You know, Waste Pro, my mother has Waste Pro up in Pembroke Pines, and eventually you're going to have those green cans and blue cans, as far as I know. But, you know, these guys, I know them all, and they all know me. And the work that they do is incredible. I've never seen it before. I've been around for 50-odd years, and it's, like, awesome. That's a part of Biscayne Park, the village. Okay, and as far as Miami County-Dade School, the only thing that affects me, right, like, really, is the police department here. If they sat a cop car in front of my house, right, they could hide behind the bushes. They'd make their quota in a week. Because when these young guys with their Bimmers and their Mercedes are going to school at Miami Country-Dade and Griffin is crowded, they come flying up Northeast 8th at 50 miles an hour. And that's what affects me with Miami County-Dade School. And these guys need to stay here and keep working, because it's rough to be unemployed. It doesn't sound like they want to go to Waste Pro.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Pamela Garman. I live at 721 Northeast 114th Street. A little less than a week ago, we started a grassroots program here, a petition, I should say. Elena read the petition to you, so you know what it says. And in fact, I want to ask you now who I turn these 326 signatures over to.
You can turn it to the clerk.
Okay, I'll do that. We did this, as I said, it's just grassroots. It wasn't anything that we were prompted to do by anyone in particular. We just wanted to support the sanitation division of the Public Works Department. We like our guys that pick up our garbage and our trash. We want to support them in any way we can. I think we should express our loyalty to them for all the good work they've done over all the years. None of them have told me that they will go to work for Waste Pro. In fact, they said they will not. I don't see any reason why we should just abandon them now, and that our voices should be heard. I don't see why, and with all due respect, 3 commissioners can make a decision for the entirety of Biscayne Park when most of the people we approach, and believe me, we have not approached every single person. Obviously, we didn't have enough time to do this. Most of these people that we've approached have signed this petition and are in favor of it. So I would just like you to reconsider possibly your decision and think about what these people are asking you to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Steve Bernard, 860 Northeast 115th Street. I've analyzed these numbers. I've sent my information out to people on my email list. So I'll try to get through them real quick. The first is the Waste Pro bid is very low. It's $388,000. If you take out the same things that we would have to pay, the tipping fees, the gas, the recycling, and the one other thing, the total of $388,000 comes down to $99,000. Take those same numbers from our latest budget, and you're at $400,000. That's 4 times as much. Now, our number is high. I think it was high so that we could prove that we have to outsource. $99,000 is too low. When you hire a contractor for such a low number, you ask for problems on all sides. The next highest bid was $150,000. Second thing is recycling. Using Waste Pro and using their $85,000 container fee for the next 3 years, we will be paying exactly twice as much as we would if we stay with Miami Shores. That's $30 a person. The whole thing is, oh, we need money, the village needs money. Mayor Jacobs was right. You can't take money from an enterprise fund, put it into the general fund, and think that nobody's going to be watching. Right now, when the workshops happen, there's going to be $189,000 in administrative fees and $60,000 in franchise fees. It's $250,000. It's now down to $155,000. Our current budget right now has $145,000 in administrative fees. That's a $10,000 increase. That shouldn't be going to the village anyway. That isn't worth it. $10,000 is not worth it to outsource. The next thing to do is a real actual budget. The budget that was shown had $894,000. It included adding an employee, it included higher health costs, it included 2 trucks when one will do. Cut that down to get to our current service. I'm not saying we shouldn't pay our guys more. I'm saying current service, and it comes to between $20 and $30 a household. It's not worth it. The last thing is, there's a meeting. 27 people said no, 4 people said yes. You proceeded. At the next meeting, 15 people said no, 2 people said yes. You proceeded. You now have 320 some odd signatures. 327, thank you. That's 15% of the electorate. That's 100 people more than you need for a recall petition. You only need 10% for that. If you don't want to listen to what the people that take the time to come here time and time again, if you don't want to listen to what the people are saying in the signatures in less than a week, then you do it at your own detriment, and you do it at the detriment of this village. Please vote no.
Thank you, Steve.
Hello, Susan Weiss, 960 Northeast 116th Street. I just have some comments. Before I came here, I did some research, and these are comments from literature on the subject of privatization or outsourcing, and I think they resonate with what we've been hearing. The privatization of public services can erode accountability and transparency of the government. Watch out for hidden costs and consequences when turning over public service to a for-profit company. A company's motivation is not the common good, it's profit. They will cut corners. And on a personal note, I have to say that one day, about a month ago, I was putting out my recycling bin, and they came early, and I ran out with the bin, and they were ready two houses down, and that was it. You know, they never picked it up for that day, and this is Miami Shores, and I'm sure that our people would have, you know, seen me or come back and picked up my recycling bin. So they're not responsive to the needs of the community. The quality and responsiveness of municipal services declined following privatization efforts. A study from Tulsa, and they're talking about snow removal, said officials noted that public in-house street crews could be deployed in emergencies much faster than contractors. And often cities are unable to provide necessary in-depth oversight of an outside organization. So we don't want to be handing over control of vital services that residents rely on to a group that we really have no control over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Keys. First of all, I want to thank all 5 of you for listening to me and others over the last 3 or 4 or 5 meetings that we've been speaking about this subject. But I believe you all listened. 3 of you heard me and voted for privatization. 2 of you heard me and voted against privatization. So to say that nobody's listening, all 5 of you are listening. 3 of you are making a decision that I appreciate. I do not believe we will see a reduction in the quality of the services that we get for waste collection by going to a contractor. I believe we will be paying less. That's a fact. I believe that there'll be some additional benefits to the budget based on reduced costs in other areas of the budget. I read the petition. I was asked to sign it. And I note that it said, we don't agree with your decision outsourcing the Public Works Department. Okay? Well, that's not exactly factual. We are, and it may have been understood by those 300 people that signed it, okay, that it only deals with the waste collection services portion of the Public Works Department. It does not deal with the other portion of Public Works that provides us with additional services here in the community. I believe the manager will outline how many employees will remain here doing those things for us on a daily basis. I believe this will give the administration more time to do things of a higher level that we need to do in this community, okay, rather than managing employees doing something that a contractor can do for us. Okay, we can monitor that contractor every single day just like we monitor our own employees. However, it's going to take less time. The fact that a contractor can do it for less proves the point. That's the way to go. We have every opportunity in the world to get rid of this contractor in a number of years. Okay, first of all, we're going to have lower costs to begin with, then lower costs, then a known increase in cost at year 3 and 4 and 5. Okay, if we want to, but even after that, if we want to, at some point, we want to put this service back into the hands of village employees, we have to do the same thing we have to do now, which is buy vehicles and hire employees at a good wage, which nobody has been breaking down the doors to ask you to do until this subject came up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Good evening. Milton Hunter, 646 Northeast 114th Street. I didn't realize on the 2nd that there was an informal vote being taken in favor or not, and that assumption would be if people did not get up and speak their mind, that they were automatically put on one side of the ledger. So I wanted to say that that is not the case, and that is not the case with me. I am in favor of outsourcing for one specific reason, which with all of the conversation that's been had has been understated and is unequivocal. It's not an opinion, it's not a debate, it's not a number to manipulate for one side of an argument or another. It's basically our audited financial statement for the last 10 fiscal years, and it reads as such. The village has lost $841,000 over that period of time and has run a deficit in the red 8 of those 10 years. Now, you don't have to be a financial major to understand that this is a system that is not sustainable. If we took these financial numbers and flipped them into a medical application, the crash cart would be brought in. Changes need to be made. This may not be the only change that needs to be made regarding looking to add revenues and increase expenditures where we can. The option that was most seemingly favored at the meeting earlier in the month, option D, is a 75% increase to the taxpayers to what the contract would be through privatization. And I think we would all be naive to think that if you think you're getting pushback now from people that attend these meetings, look at the majority of the taxpayers getting a 75% hit depending on who's going to collect their trash and recycling. So if the numbers are 24 to 4, 15 to 2, or even with the efforts made with this petition, we are not speaking for and should not assume we are speaking for the majority of our taxpayers, which I believe would like to see a millage rate reduce if possible, since it's sky high, as long as the services remain status quo similar, which is, I believe, what we have. We will have more control of the costs and also of our work expectation by privatization, many other benefits that would be ad nauseum to go over now at this point. But I think in our future property values are going to be based much more so on the infrastructure we have in place with the aesthetics of the village, the homes, the effectiveness of our codes, than ultimately who was collecting our trash and our recycling. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Karen Cohen. I live on 113th and 8th Avenue. First, I want to say that I agree with Steve Bernard, and Steve and I haven't agreed on anything since early 2009. So anyway, I think that we should take a breath and let this go. I'd like to say that the department is so great. Our guys are without peer. I don't think anybody else in Miami-Dade County has the kind of department that we have. They're so helpful all the time. They know us. They know what's going on. And I think we should work hard to keep them and keep this department. They are part of our Biscayne Park family, and I think we need to work a little bit harder to keep them. I think Commissioner Anderson has a very good proposal that would work for us, at least for another year. He's, he'll, maybe some of you have seen that. I think that we could go for that. Then we could look again and take a good look at what our options are. One of the problems I see in our park is that people are not finding out what the residents want and then working to make that happen. Maybe we can't. Maybe when all is said and done, we will have to outsource that. But I don't think we're at that point yet. I think we should stop, find out what the residents want, see if we can make that happen. I think this outward in process is not good for us. I think we have to work from inside and outward, and I think you have the chance to do that. Today, I agree with a couple other people about the troublesome nature of how decisions are being made, and I agree that I realize there's been workshops. I realize it's a hard decision. You guys are the ones who have to make the vote, but you do have the opportunity to give us one more year. Commissioner Anderson's proposal would work, and then we can go forward and with the support of the community. I think that's really important. So I hope you'll be bold, make a bold decision, turn this down, tonight, and then we'll all work together for the next step. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. I'm going to speak in favor of outsourcing. For the first time, we will know what the cost will be for the next 5 years, as stated in the contract. The first year, it will be $466. The second year, approximately $400, because it goes down because the bins will be included in the first year. The cost to in-house will be approximately $700. That's a first-year savings of approximately $250, and in the next year, $300 going forward. I've heard from several residents that Waste Pro will raise the fee in 6 months. It's not true. There is a 5% maximum annual cap on the fee. In-house, we have no control over costs, such as insurance, repairs, and fuel. It's the best time to make this change. Presently, we need to overhaul the majority of the sanitation fleet, and we have the least number of sanitation employees. We can forego this expenditure by outsourcing. We used to have 9 men in the sanitation department. Now we're budgeted for 7, but we only have 6. The reason that we only have 6 is because we're having difficulty finding employees because the starting wages are so low. Often, because we're short on personnel, if someone is sick or out on vacation, we have to pull men from other departments, such as the road fund or public works, and then other work doesn't get done around here. Every day there's garbage recycling or yard trash and trucks on our streets. By outsourcing, you'll only be there for 2 days. They have programs to encourage more recycling, and we can benefit with rebates from these programs. We have no such programs in Miami Shores. We now have a building for the police that otherwise we can't afford to build. We have an opt-out clause. If Waste Pro is not performing and they breach the contract, there are substantial liquidating damages if they don't perform. And we can terminate that contract and or fine them. The budget now calls for retaining 2 of the 6 current sanitation workers. Because of this and many of the reasons that I stated, I'm, again, in favor of outsourcing. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Chuck. Any other public comments?
Hello, Brian McNulty, 1008 Northeast 116th. I would also like to speak in favor of outsourcing, and it's something I've written about. And one thing I want to point out first is there's a lot of people who call or write to our staff and commission, so not all of the votes that you hear are always spoken here. There are a lot of others. But mostly I think it's good to see that we have a with the new commission and new staff, that we have a leadership that's looking out for the best interests of the park. And going ahead with this is what we need for our well-being as a sustainable town, rather than just something that we're afraid of change or something like that. So anyway, that's all.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Brad Piper. I'm at 1008 Northeast 116th Street. And I'm actually in favor of privatization. And I have to say, initially, I was against it. I really didn't want to see Biscayne Park lose its in-house trash service. However, I did attend the meetings. I did read the information. I debated it with my partner Brian, who's just here. We talked about it. I called the commissioners. I've chatted with anybody and everybody to gain more knowledge and information about what we should do. And ever since we've been here for about 2 years, I hear we're not financially sustainable. I hear the future of Biscayne Park is in question. And if that is so, how can this even be a debate? We're cutting our costs, we're creating additional revenue, less liability, we're freeing up resources, buildings, and as much as I really, my heart goes out to the sanitation workers because they're wonderful people, and I've talked to them on the street, we need to do this not out of what we want, but what we need. Biscayne Park needs this for our future, for the sustainability of our community. And so I totally support outsourcing. And just on one more note, you know, I love the fact, I love it when I see somebody come up and say, hey, you know, sign my petition, because it shows that they're really engaged. It shows that they really want to see change or something happen. However, the individual that knocked on my door was not informed. The information that they were wanting me to sign the petition for was inaccurate. And if these petitions and these signatures are coming from a source that is misinforming the public, such as you're going to be required to use a trash bin for your yard trash, or in 6 months after the contract is signed, they're going to renegotiate it. These things are not valid. So, you know, what I want to suggest is that if you do go out and you do want to petition and you do want to you know, round up your cause, which is great, be informed. Read the budget, read the information, and know what you're talking about. But you know, but I respect that. But I am in favor of outsourcing.
Thank you, Brad.
Matt Kaminsky, I own 7 properties. Just to go what this guy said, to be informed, yeah, we have a budget issue, but I don't think that you, as the commissioners, have explained to the people. The garbage department does not affect our issue here, okay? And this gentleman here says we have a financial issue. It's not going to affect my millage rate. It's not going to affect that we're paying and all our taxes and everything is upside down. And we are not addressing this. I don't understand why we're addressing garbage for a couple $100 per unit, okay, when we have millions of dollars and Biscayne Park has been going nowhere in the last few years. And all the surrounding neighborhoods, yes. You can look at me and tell me. We have a budget issue, and you guys will not speak and let the residents that voted you in to know that, okay? Now, how many people here want to outsource? Okay? We voted you in, and you're not listening to us, okay? And you have a city manager that came in 3-4 months ago that's supposed to just give you ideas, go out and get you prices. Then you're supposed to report to us, okay? Why aren't you listening to us? Okay, we are the residents that voted you in. Okay, the real issue you won't address to the owners. This is not affecting the budget. This is affecting one item on the budget, which is the garbage, but it's not in our taxes. Why don't you explain and educate the owners instead of just going up here and fighting about garbage? She came in here in 4 months, and we're not addressing what our problem is. It's taxes. And you guys don't speak about it. Garbage, that's all you want to talk about, that we're going to save $200 a homeowner. Where does that help me with my house and my taxes? So can you explain to the residents, since you were voted in by them? Instead, I don't. Look at me every meeting and you guys...
Sir, make
okay?
your comments and then sit down.
That's just,
and we'll
say it.
deliberate.
Okay.
That's the way
Next, right? Okay.
Thank you.
But why can't you ever answer? These are the residents.
We're going to deliberate once you sit down. After we take public comment, that's the way the system works. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gary Grizzle. I live at 850 Northeast 121st Street. Lived here for 30 years. I think it's relevant in this context. I'm the chair of the Department of Sociology and Criminology at Barry University. I know a good bit about urban development. I also know a good bit about urban decline. The problem with Biscayne Park, we do have a very serious budget problem. It isn't the sanitation. It is the fact that, one, we had a decline in the housing market nationwide, which lowered the taxes. And two, we have a problem with code enforcement in Biscayne Park because the property values are going down because the properties are not being properly taken care of. And despite all of our efforts to get somebody to do something about it, nothing happens. If we waited out this housing recession, and if we did something about the quality of housing, people would move into the neighborhood, the housing prices would go up, the taxes would go up without the millage going up, and we wouldn't have a problem. The other concern I have is every time I try to get information about this, I have sent out emails on this to at least 5 staff members of the Village of Biscayne Park and to every commissioner, and I've heard back from 2 of them. I don't know how this guy that was just up here gets all this information from folks. I get nothing. And when I get answers, I get evasions. I don't get, this is what's going on. Suddenly I'm hearing that they're not going to lay off employees. I never heard that. I heard this was all about the budget. I heard that, now I'm hearing that somehow this is a benevolent move for these folks. I don't understand the benevolence. These folks have been working here for a long time. They're grown up. They're intelligent gentlemen. They can decide what they're willing to work for. I don't think we need to make that decision for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. George Marinoni, 118th Street. I want to say that in the beginning I was against outsourcing too, and I went to the workshops. There were 2. I read everything I could find. I looked it up, and I came up that this is the right decision for many, many reasons. Biscayne Park cannot collect more money in taxes. The reason is the state of Florida passed some extra homestead exemptions. 10 years ago, we only had one for $25,000. Then they passed a second one for another $25,000. You read your tax records. I did that. We don't pay too much money to Biscayne Park in taxes. We pay money to the state and to the county. But read the school system, the county. Read how much you pay to Biscayne Park. There's nothing. The homeowners association pays more per month. I used to own 2 condominiums. I used to pay 10 times more just for homeowners association what I pay now in taxes. It's ridiculous. We cannot collect money from taxes. There is a reason they are doing this, because they have to read what's going on with finances. They have to read what we can do to make the city viable. I want to live in Biscayne Park. I've been here for 25 years. I love this city. I love the community. I love everything about Biscayne Park. But we have to do what we have to do. And if not, what are we going to do? Unincorporate Biscayne Park? Go with Miami Shores like some people, a commissioner proposed? It's not a good idea. We lose our police. We lose our management. We lose everything that we have as a community. We are going to become just a small part of a bigger city, or unincorporated Dade County, like across the railroad tracks. I don't want to be like that. I want to have a police force that I know, that I'm friends with, that they know me. I know what they are doing. I know the manager. I know the commissioners. I know my neighbors. You know, it's a good city. If we lose the city, we lose everything. So they are doing what they have to do. I'm sorry, but they don't speak for me when they say we the people of Biscayne Park. That is a misstatement. There are many people that are not here. They don't want to pay more taxes. If we have to raise the taxes, many people will have to pay a lot more taxes they cannot afford with the garbage. Because if we keep it in-house, it will go up. It will not stay the same. It's money out of their pockets. They're not here to speak. But it's true. So, and this You own 5 properties. Okay, 5 properties is 5 times more that you're gonna pay. Or 7, exactly.
Okay, thank you, George.
And that's it.
Thank you.
That's what I wanna say. Thank you.
All right, yes, sir.
Respectfully, I would, if it's possible, I would ask that you take this ordinance out of order so that the people that are here are aware of the vote that's taken. If that's possible, I appreciate it to hear the voice.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other public comment?
Kay Winston Reed, 10907 Northeast 9th Avenue. As you know, I've been here before. I don't believe in privatization. When we get our tax bills, one is the tax, and then there's a separate line for our garbage disposal. That's separate, and we pay the bill. So that has nothing to do with what you can afford to spend and where you can fritter it away, okay? The people here have all gotten up, so many of them have come, they've turned off their TV, gotten off their couch, and stood in this little room sweating to death to make their point. And you have refused to listen to them. You're supposed to be doing by the people and for the people as a democracy, and I sure don't see it working here.
Okay.
Gary Kuehl, still residing at 111th Street. I think there's a little naivete on the people that are proponents of outsourcing, and probably some very naive comments for people that want to maintain what we currently have. I think it's very important to again note so people understand that the waste fee has nothing to do with your taxes. And furthermore, it has been said before, unfortunately not said tonight, there are people that are perfectly willing to pay extra money to maintain what we have. This idea that we have 327 signatures right now, is that correct? That's really significant. We have 20%, I believe, renters in the village, 20% of the households, 22%. So you take that factor out, that's a pretty large percentage in a very short period of time. This idea that the people that haven't spoken, somehow people like to allude to the fact that they may represent some opposing view. They may be people that don't care, aren't informed, renters, what have you. This is a community that every time somebody feels like their entitlements are being stepped on, they come out and talk, be it fences, be it boats in the front yard, what have you. If people, there are that many people that really feel that we should outsource, they'd be here. It's really been a handful of people, some of who have some very definite vested interests for their own personal benefit in seeing that things change. Excuse me. I think also, unfortunately, the statement keeps being made that people feel that we should be fair to our public employees, that they like them, they're neighbors, there's friends. But there's a lot more to it than that. It's the fact that it is a way of life. It is something that has differentiated this community. Our police force, our commissioners who we know, our public works people. It really what makes Biscayne Park different. It is one of the things that does definitely add value to this community. And it is something I think will continue to add value to this community. I had one other thought which I think has escaped me. Anyway, I'm opposed to outsource. Oh, I know what it was. So anyway, this whole conversation started with nothing's going to change. You're going to get exactly the same service. Don't worry about it. First of all, other communities have experienced Waste Pro. They are not going to pick up the quantity of trash this community has. We have a lot of yard trash, and it's handled. The other thing is, again, no difference in your service. What do we hear right off the bat once we get down to really sign that contract? Curbside service. That's not what we get now. So I just see this thing being railroaded along, and this has not been the kind of conversation that I think is really a service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Chuck,
Evelyn Gary, 953 Northeast 109th. I know you probably don't want to hear me again, but what this gentleman said is true. We're a very small community. I've lived here over 40 years, and we want to stay that way, and we don't want to become big government just like the United States is becoming big government. Everything's is going to be taken away from us. We want to stay little, and that's what the people of this audience wants. And we elected you for that reason, okay? And when you all went door to door, that's what you said you're going to do. But I don't think a lot of it's happened. But I have one thing to say. The day that we're going to have, I think, the last meeting, I ran into a gentleman who was looking at a property over here, and his name is Mr. Carr. I've never seen him before, but he's probably my age. He's in his 70s. He said he bought his first place here when he got married. So it's quite a long time ago. He lives in a big estate in Palm Beach County. He owns a lot of property on the beach. Maybe some of you know him. I've never seen him before. Very nice gentleman. Anyway, I was telling him about this. I said, can you, it was like 4:30 in the afternoon. I said, why don't you come to the meeting? He still owns property here, so I guess you can look it up. I think he has 2 duplexes, and one on the other side of the railroad track, too, and on Miami Beach, and in Palm Beach, and Port St. Lucie. He was telling me, when I told him about the meeting of this Waste Pro, he said, this is the worst thing that is. He said, they've had so much problem with it. So if you don't believe me, I don't have his address, I don't have his number, but I'm sure you can look it up. And you could ask him what he told me. And so I think that that's from experience. I wasn't going to mention his name because usually I don't like to mention people's names. But I don't think there was any reason for him to tell me that. And I asked him that night, can you please stay? And he said no, he had a long drive home to West Palm Beach, and he lives on a 5-acre estate. So I don't think he's just run-of-the-mill gentleman. So I think that we all should consider, we love Biscayne Park. And the ones that have lived here so long, why are we still here? Because we love it. Used to be on my street about 5 or 6 multi-millionaires. Some of them died. Why were they still living there? People didn't even know it. The people used to live almost across the street. All that property with Aventura belonged to them. They're dead now. Why were they living there, in here? Because they like Biscayne Park. Still a little tiny community, and we should try to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Madar, 735 Northeast 115th Street. And if managers over there would like to look at the petition, my name is number 1 on there. And I walked around Biscayne Park and I talked to a lot of people to see if we can keep our wonderful workers that are working for the city. And I have a problem with Mr. Jonas because I heard that Scuttlebutt says that I didn't cough up the $500 that I was willing to pay for the purchase of a industrial-sized lawnmower for these guys to keep the medians clean. And 3 other people joined in and matched my $500. And I was told that, where's my $500? I'm not stupid. You put a piece of paper on the counter and sign as a contract. My $500 is still good. Trust me. And I guarantee the other 3 people who are willing to pay, and I'm sure some of these people are willing to chip in to purchase a lawnmower to keep these guys here. But I resent being called a liar because my $500 is still good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? If you could hold the applause. Anyone else? Any other public comments? Seeing none. Oh, Linda.
Linda Dillon, 712 115th Street. The last time I got up and spoke about this issue, I was very strongly opposed to outsourcing. I still am. But I ended my commentary and I said something about, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And a number of people publicly, to my face, behind my back, ridiculed what I said and said, but it is broke. So I've looked at the issues again, and I see that maybe it is, but I still believe that we can fix it. It's not something that you just throw out without considering what we could do to make it better and make it work for us. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Lydia. Anyone else? Any other public comment? All right, we'll close the.
I received a copy of an email that was sent to the clerk asking that the comments be read. The email included all of the
So the email's in the record? Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's in the record. It's part of, we all received it.
We don't know what it says. Is it transparent?
How many emails are there?
Did they all ask to be read for the record?
Okay, so the ones that asked.
You all were included.
Okay, all right. All right, so it's how many emails asked to be read? 1, 2?
1.
Okay, can you read that into the record?
I'm sorry. If we read one, I think we would have to read them all because one person is using that not to be read. You're going to add more weight to one person and not another.
But they're part of the record, and anyone could come and look at it. Read them all.
First one is from David Tennell. I request that my message be read in my absence. I will be traveling out of the country. Dear Mayor, Commissioners, it is evident that the large majority of Biscayne Park residents are in favor of retaining our sanitation team, not outsourcing at any cost. You are the elected officials given this official charge and authority by the park's residents. I advise you to reconsider your initial vote to outsource. As the park residents have gained awareness of your actions, the sentiment is one of utter outrage. You have heard the overwhelming voice of opposition by your constituents. I suggest you take heed and reflect the village voice. I am personally volunteering my resources, both time and money, to keep our sanitation private. I know that I do not stand alone in this sentiment. Sincerely, David Tennell. The next one is from Martine Ertz. I cannot make the meeting, but I would like to let you know that I live in Biscayne Park for a total of 16 years. I really hope we can keep the current group of people. They are like family to me. They also know us and keep an eye on our homes. They know who belongs there and are a great asset to our security. Please reconsider to keep these wonderful people. Thank you, Martine Ertz. This is from A.J. Gallo. Elected officials, you are about to make a decision that once made cannot be reversed. The contract is for now. However, the next negotiations, once they have you, will not be easy or inexpensive to negotiate. What's next? Police? Metro-Dade can provide 2 full-time patrol officers with only a staff on 10 officers. Village management. This is the only expense that has grown out of control. We hire a village manager. This is a stepping stone to a better paying position, but to prove they can handle a bigger position, she needs an assistant, and the assistant needs a clerk. With some 1,200 homes in the park, a village manager with $100,000 salary and benefits package costs each homeowner $833 per year for that position. Time has come for...
Can you just read that again?
Yeah,
that sentence?
I was going to say the math is wrong. With some 1,200 homes in the park, a village manager with a $100,000 salary and benefits package costs each homeowner $833 per year for that position. That would be $1,081,230.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Time has come for our elected officials to stop looking at low-hanging fruit to solve the budget problems and look at where the real money is being spent and only continue to grow. Village management. I have seen a lot since my family moved into the park in 1952 and have continued to reside here. Community built the bones of the rec center. The park operated with only a clerk. Commissioners were involved beyond meetings. They each were responsible for a department and its budget. Now we have contracted that out. We have given up control of our community to hired help. A.J. Gallo. Okay, and this last one here has to do with Miami Country Day. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll just read the sanitation part.
Okay.
Okay, this is from Andrew Olis. As for sanitation, after reading up on the facts, I have converted my opinion from keeping it in-house to outsource it. It is the right thing to do. I see Waste Pro in some of the northeast areas enlisting some houses recently. Their guys clean up nicely if needed, and everything is automated. Looks orderly when trash is out and orderly when picked up. Best regards and thanks for reading.
Okay. All right, so we'll close the public comment period, and we're going to take, I think it makes, I agree with Mayor Jacobs that we should take ordinance 2014-03 first.
I have a concern.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I have a concern about that because at least one speaker said that Commissioner Anderson has some alternate plan that deals with sanitation in-house, which would deal with the sanitation fee. And if we take the ordinance first, then that would not be part of the conversation for the ordinance. So it kind of makes sense to me to first hear Commissioner Anderson's plan, decide on the waste fee, and then take and then do the ordinance, as we have it on the agenda.
Commissioner Anderson?
Mayor, I'm for moving 5A to put it behind 6B, and I will be glad to explain, what I think is a good compromise to do. But to go ahead and to establish our waste fee when we're still working on a contract and say this is the number we're going to pay, but we're still working on a contract, and if they refuse, we're stuck. We're stuck. And I think we need to come up with the waste fee after we work on the contract.
Other comments?
I agree with Commissioner Anderson. I think we're putting the horse before the cart. If we decide on a waste fee when we haven't even decided whether or not we're going to go into privatization or remain in-house.
Okay. Commissioner Jonas, any comments? All right, so we'll take, Commissioner Rossi, do you have something else?
It's fine.
All right, so we'll take ordinance 2014-03.
Would you like me to read it, Mayor?
Yes, please.
An ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, granting an exclusive franchise for solid waste collection services to Waste Pro Florida, Inc., repealing all ordinances inconsistent with this ordinance, providing for severability and an effective date. Passed at first reading on May 6, 2014.
Okay, we have to open up this to public comment?
Yes.
Okay. Any public comment on this ordinance? I assume everyone has already spoken about Mr. Bernard.
Just so we're clear, I think we should incorporate by reference all the comments from Good and Welfare that were related to this ordinance into tonight's public hearing on this item. And do you want me to read the decorum again, or is the one time sufficient?
That's fine.
All right, just a few things I didn't get a chance to say before. The first is Matt Kaminsky hit it dead on the head.
I'm sorry? I didn't.
I'm sorry, Steve Bernard,
No,
816
I didn't
Northeast
hear what you said
115.
at the beginning.
Matt Kaminsky hit it dead on the head. You got your taxes for your general fund, and you got your sanitation. Sanitation is an enterprise fund. Money in, money out. If anybody thinks that they can take money from the sanitation and put into the general fund, they're kidding themselves. There's $155,000 administration fees that are in this contract that are supposedly going to go to the Village of Biscayne Park to administer the contract. No employees, a telephone call that Waste Pro has to provide. There's no administration on this other than listening to how they're going to raise the rate at 5% the first year they can. Second is, Matt asked how many people were in favor of outsourcing. I'd like to ask how many people are not in favor of outsourcing. If you could raise your hands. Thank you. That's 327 people signed a signature. I would like to point out that not one of you got 327 votes. Not one. Thought you might be interested in that. This whole deal about we need money for the village. Let me tell you, the reserves have gone down. I asked the manager a month ago, why have the reserves gone down? Haven't gotten an answer. I did hear I'm not satisfied with the results. But as a former commissioner, I can tell you the only big money that came out of the reserves was old worker comp claims. And the fact that you can't resolve these people and say, hey, instead of paying you $100,000 every year, we're going to pay for premium health care, we're going to pay for whatever you need, or we're going to stop giving you money, sign this agreement, that will stop that money. The fact that the reserves go down have nothing to do with operating, and I've been asking for a month, Mayor Jacobs been asking for a year. If you can't prove it, you can't say it. Now, as far as the fact we're going bankrupt, not that it has anything to do with sanitation, because it doesn't. The projection I saw was $150,000 in 5 years. That's less than 2% a year. If we can't find 2% savings in a $2.3 million budget, then we all ought to go home. To say that we're going to go bankrupt because of $150,000 in 5 years is lunacy. And, you know, I didn't get a chance to say it, and I want it to be clear. People said, you want us to pay $200 less for waste? No thanks. We'll keep our guys. Our guys are loyal, they're trustworthy, they're kind, they're honest, they help our elderly, they help us. When there's a hurricane, they're there. Waste Pro won't be. Yeah, we have a separate company that'll do it, but not the next day. These guys come into our backyards, we trust them, they know us, we know them. Is it the biggest reason not to do it? Maybe not for some people, but for some people that's the only reason they're here, because these guys have been with us and we ought to keep them. Now, some people have said, well, we ought to pay them more. Happy to do it. Give us a real budget, tell us what it really will cost to have our current service, and then we say, how much more can we afford? $10 a household? 50, 100? But we don't have a real budget. We have this inflated 2 trucks, 8 men, high health insurance, and high administrative fees. That's not the way to do a budget. You go back to zero budget, you bring it up, and you treat our guys right, and you make sure that when the contract says, we will hire your Biscayne Park guys for the length of the contract. That's what it says. But then it says, comma, pending job performance. And I don't want our guys thinking they're going to go over there and they're going to get the double salary and double benefits and life is great, and then as soon as the ink is dry, they say, sorry, you're not doing it good enough. That's not what it's about.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Hold the applause, please.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. Probably the strangest thing that has come out of all of this is Gary is shaking Steve's hand. I'm agreeing with Noah Jacobs and Barbara Watts, and everything's reversed. And I agree with everything Steve has said, which, again, is amazing. You know, it was maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that our recreation department had a ridiculous budget that absolutely made no sense. And everybody used to say, well, they're just numbers. We don't really spend that money. We just put these numbers in. And nobody knew what to do. And they were talking about closing. Should we just get rid of recreation? Should we redo it? And for anybody who has said that recreation is outsourced, it is not. Recreation, we have a recreation director, and there are a couple of things, after-school program, the summer camp, aerobics, different things, people come in. That is not an outsourced department, not hiring another company to run the entire thing. The recreation department was redone, and now it's functioning great. Somebody took the time to actually redo it. And the people who are in favor of the outsourcing, if you look at it, I used to say, it's hard to argue with those numbers. But I've also said, I don't believe the numbers we're getting for keeping it in-house. I feel that it's the first workshop, the numbers were ridiculous, and the administration said they had made mistakes, and the numbers were lowered. And it still is, they're numbers that don't really mean anything. We've had our own public works department for the 30 years I've lived here, and I don't know when this started. And somehow we've always managed. It might not be perfect. I don't think anybody living in Biscayne Park expects everything to be perfect. And if Commissioner Anderson has a proposal to keep it going for another year, to try to work something out, like we did with recreation, try to really look at it hard, and get the right numbers, that's what you should be doing. And I cannot believe that 3 of you would have this amount of people signing a petition, showing up at meetings, and absolutely ramrodding this through, just because the 3 of you think this is right. The one thing I did hear when I was talking to people with this petition is the arrogance from the commissioners. And it's up to you to change that by rejecting this and letting this go another year. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Anyone else? Chuck?
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin. God, you know, it's the fact that there's this distrust of the management's numbers. I actually ran the numbers myself. Well, what it says is that people don't understand the numbers, which doesn't surprise me because they usually don't. Let me just point one thing out. Barbara, they did outsource the after-school programs at the rec center because they were bleeding us. It turned out, well, just saying, that's not a completely accurate statement. They were outsourced. Now, let me point something else out. For the financial statement for September 30th, 2012 in our sanitation fund, we had a $91,000 loss. Now, who do you think funded the $91,000 loss? The general fund. We had $42,000 left at the end of that year because the costs in this fund are not, well, they're not controlled. There's things that we can't plan for. We don't know what's going to happen to fuel costs in the future, insurance costs, et cetera. And as far as the administration fee that was brought up, a portion of the administration fee is a direct payroll allocation, and a portion of it is an indirect payroll allocation. And the indirect payroll allocation, I believe, is about $48,000. Is that right, Manager? I have it in front of me.
46, 48.
And the rest is a direct payroll allocation, which means other people contribute to the sanitation function here, because there is going to continue to be a sanitation function. Even though we were going to outsource, there's still going to be things that need to be done. And as far as one thing that that I brought up before that nobody talked about, is that if we do outsource, we will have a building, another administration building. We don't have to build one, and we can't afford to build one. And that's a big deal, in my mind. And there is the $250 to $300 plus a year per household, per living unit. So those things do need to be considered, and I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Anyone else? Dan Keys?
Dan Keys. Haven't changed my mind since 15 minutes ago. You know, my house is an enterprise fund too. And I see it as $250 not going out for less. Because my community can do more with that $250 if they take it for another reason. Pave my roads, take care of drainage issues in the community as is a separate proposal, not connected to this one. Okay? And if you don't decide to do that, I still get $250 in my pocket. It's not $250 that I couldn't afford to pay the village, but I see zero reason to take that money out of my pocket and throw it at something that has no greater value than what I can get for $250 less. And I feel I get more value out of what the administrative staff of the community can do, and your time up there, to deal with code enforcement issues that absolutely need to be dealt with, and code issues, improving our code in this community so our values really go up. People come into this community to buy things, assume the garbage and trash is going to get picked up, and it's going to get picked up one way or the other. It can't be sitting out there on the roadway. We have an efficient method. Maybe they can teach us something, okay? You want to go back to this in 5 years? Maybe we learned something from Waste Pro over that period of time. Maybe it's bad that we learn, and we don't want to do it. But maybe it's really good, and we can do it. We can restart doing it that way. We're still going to have a public works function here, doing things that will improve the value of our community, not keeping them the same. Okay? I don't want to pay the same for what we're getting right now. I mean, I don't want to pay more for less, and that's what I feel I'd be doing. You've all heard it from me before. There's a couple of emails there that could have been read tonight from me as well. It's really interesting to me hearing from one of my the fellow residents here that they got visited for the purpose of having the petition signed, and that misinformation was provided. I'm not saying everybody that went around signing that, trying to get that petition signed, sent out misinformation. But obviously, one resident got misinformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
I want to say something. Hello, good evening. I'm a homeowner. My name is Olivia. I live at 690 Northeast 121 Street. I say that we keep the guys. And I'm a little disappointed because I didn't get any information about this. And so one of the reasons that we moved here was because of the transparency. And I think that's what makes us unique from other municipalities. And so I say to keep the guys. They do a great job. And it's clear that the majority of the people here want these guys to be here. They do a great job. And I know people who work for Waste Pro, we don't want to go there. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank
you. Still Gary Grizzle. I'd like to say 2 things. One, we know of one person that was given misinformation. All the rest is just innuendo. Okay, that's character assassination. When you take one incident, and then you say that this must have been the case in all instances, that is wrong. I'm just putting on the point. One person said that they were told misinformation. Nobody else has said that. Okay? There's names, there's phone numbers on the petitions, which, by the way, I would like to get a copy of those petitions when you're finished because I want to call some of those people. Call those people and find out if they were given misinformation. The second thing I want to say is I have a great solution to this problem that should have been done in the first place. If there's something this important that involves the livelihood of people that have worked here for 20-some odd years, put it to a referendum. You know what? I know what the answer to that referendum would be, and I'm pretty sure you folks know what it would be too. So I think that's the solution. Put it to a referendum, let the people in Biscayne Park decide, and that'll be it.
Thank you, sir. All right, any other comments? Any other public comments? All right,
We're having a debate. I just want to shake Steve's hand again. Gary Kuehl, 777 Northeast 111th Street. I think I don't want to make a lot of comments, but just in light of the fact that there's obvious, unbelievable confusion about all of this. People are misinformed. People don't understand the difference between taxes, waste fees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This, if nothing else, should be postponed. This is not the night to make the decision. This would be absolutely irresponsible of the commission to even consider it. This is not a community that really is in the know about what's going on. And they really need to understand a realistic, actual, factual, financial impact if they want to support keeping this in-house. This idea that if we go to Waste Pro, we're all of a sudden going to have all this money. From what? Where's it coming from? A franchise fee? That's our money to begin with. Okay? It's not a donation. It's just money coming back to us. These issues need to be perfectly clear to this community. It's very distressing that people stand up here and say, I never heard about this till tonight, or I didn't hear about it when it started. I think it has been obscured. And if nothing else, no matter what your feelings are, if you are still in favor of this, you owe it to this community not to do anything tonight. Thank you.
thank you. All right, any other comments? All right, we'll close the public hearing. And Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, I've got a couple things since this has to do with the contract.
Please speak up.
What we've had previously, since I've lived here, if there's a forecast of a wind event, hurricane, it's coming. People start scrambling just before the impact of cleaning up around their house with vegetation. It usually starts about a week before. Our sanitation department has always gone around and started picking up the debris that people keep putting out before the wind event. I don't see anything in the contract that that's going to happen, except for maybe we could be hiring somebody. That's an extra cost that we never had before. Also, too, we have our backyard, side yard pickup that we enjoy now.
Commissioner Anderson, I'm sorry. Are you discussing the contract?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to have staff first.
Okay.
And then we'll
All right.
bring it back.
Okay.
Good evening. At the May 6, 2014 commission meeting, we were directed to address some outstanding issues with the draft franchise agreement. I'm going to go over those issues and the solutions we came up with. We were asked to rewrite Article 5, which talks about the off-street residential collection service. We clarified that side door and back door service is free and available to all residents. Article 5 is now appropriately titled Off-Street Residential Collection Services. It removes any innuendo regarding it being a special service that requires some kind of special qualification. We were asked to negotiate a higher percentage in favor of the village for solid waste avoidance rebate. We took that share from 50-50 to 65%, 35% in favor of the village. We were asked to include clear language for a termination clause. Article 16 of the agreement states that the village may terminate this agreement if the contractor materially breaches this agreement and does not cure said material breach within 7 days of receipt of written notice from the village. We also talked about immediate financial consequences or liquidated damages, as it's called in the contract. Those are now included, and it says in the event that the contractor is in violation of any provision of this agreement, the village may choose to levy liquidated damages as outlined below. In the first event, a written warning with 24 hours to cure. A second event, $500 per day. Third event, $750 per day. And a fourth event or more, $1,000 per day. Missed pickups are addressed in Article 7. If the village manager or a customer notifies the contractor about a missed collection, the contractor shall promptly return to the customer's premise and collect the waste or recyclable material. If they're notified by noon, it should be done before the end of that day. After 12 o'clock noon, the collection has to be completed before noon the next operating day. In the last week, we received concerns from a commissioner regarding items that are put out on the wrong day. I've proposed, if you look at Exhibit C, it's a very simple language. I believe it's the 5th bullet point. We say special pickups of items over 2 cubic yards, appliances, and so on and so forth shall be at the rates established by the village resolution. I'm proposing that tonight, and I've talked to the contractor about this, that we add a couple more words so it's more clear to give a level of comfort. Saying special pickup of items placed out on the wrong day, those over 2 cubic yards, appliances, white goods, and other bulk pickups such as mattresses and furniture shall be at the rates established by the village resolution. That would address those items placed out on the wrong day. We were also asked to negotiate a higher franchise fee. It has now been raised to 11%. To go over the services that are provided in the franchise agreement, there's twice a week manual pickup of garbage on Tuesdays and Fridays. The entire village will be picked up on Tuesdays and Fridays. Residents will either place their trash or their garbage at the curb, or they will have it picked up from their side or back door. Once a week manual pickup of trash and yard waste will be on Tuesdays. I heard tonight some information I would like to clarify. The agreement says in Exhibit C, residents shall either place their containers not to exceed 40 gallons or a pile of yard waste not to exceed 2 cubic yards out on the curb for pickup. That is the same service we have now. And once a week pickup of recyclable materials. As had been previously discussed at last meeting, this would be in carts, rollaway carts. We heard some feedback after the last meeting regarding the size of the cart, so we have gone out and gotten prices with a split of some will be 35 gallons and some will be 65 gallons. So those who either have some physical limitations, don't feel like they recycle a lot, or have limitations on the storage areas of their homes can go for either bigger or smaller depending on what they need. I addressed the special pickups. I'm proposing we also include language about placed out on the wrong day. We've asked them to limit the hours of collection from 7 a.m. to 5:30, and they will still do the quarterly pickups. The franchise agreement calls for a contract amount of $388,933 to be annually paid by the village. This rate will not change until October 1st, 2016, and at which time, if it does change, it may only increase to a max of 5%. And that's based on a formula of the CPI times 90% of the fuel index. This CPI was 1.5 this past year. And then, so if that was the same, using that example, it would be 90% of the fuel index. As anyone who drives a car knows, it's the fuel index is always going to kill you. It's a 5-year contract with an opportunity to be extended up to 2 additional 5 years. As I previously stated, it includes manual collection of garbage, trash, and yard waste, just as it is collected now, and roll-out carts for recycling. We also have, in addition to the solid waste avoidance rebate, we have a recycling rebate, which is paid if there is a rebate from the contractor. It is paid to the advantage of the village at 80%, 20% to the contractor. We've asked for an annual donation of $5,000 in payment or in-kind service to the village for special events and community outreach. We've asked for and included a most favored nation clause, which allows the village to take advantage of a lower rate if Waste Pro negotiates a new contract with another municipality in Miami-Dade County and has a lower rate for residential services. And the contract includes expectation for our workforce to be employed by Waste Pro. This includes the offer to hire village employees and provide and maintain a list of all Waste Pro employees servicing the village, complying with the Miami-Dade living wage, and maintaining a competent, qualified workforce. I'm available for any questions from the village. There are also, from the commission, I'm sorry. There are also representatives from Waste Pro tonight here to answer any questions as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll open it up to commission comments.
I have a question.
Sure.
Talking about garbage or trash that's put out on the wrong day, there are some village residents who simply do not want to have to look at it for days until it gets picked up. So I understand that there is some sort of a penalty or something for putting it out, but the fact is, who removes it? So it doesn't just sit there for days.
According to this franchise agreement,
Yep.
Waste Pro would remove it
On an
based
off
on
day?
based on that agreement of by noon if they receive the call that day, or after 12. I can let Waste Pro discuss this if they would like. We talked about it today.
Well, let me ask you something else
In the
before
garbage
we go.
world, I'll give away a trade secret, basically something I've learned through this process, which is in the garbage world, they're never going to bicker over the difference between someone actually putting waste out on the wrong day or at the wrong time versus a missed pickup. It's all considered a missed pickup to them.
But the point is that they will come here on an off day and remove garbage or trash that shouldn't be there.
Yes, and they are nodding
Right.
in the audience.
The second thing, because it was raised, is about special debris removal, and by that I mean like the result of hurricane or storm damage. In the past, we have already had a separate contractor. It was never entirely our public works or sanitation people. We always had a contractor for those special collections. What would we have if we were to move to Waste Pro?
The answer is a separate contractor, but I want to expand on that if you'll allow me. It would be still the separate contractor, and that there's a reason for that. And that's for us to get our FEMA reimbursement, you have to go with a contractor that is familiar with the FEMA forms. And my understanding, no different than I think I was at the Seminole Tribe during Wilma, and we lost a lot of money because we didn't do the forms right. My understanding is the village had that issue as well, where you ended up owing FEMA some money. So you use the special contractor who is able to keep proper records to FEMA standards for the public debris. The trees fall in the street, there's a collection on the medians, those type of things. The franchise agreement that you have in front of you does address, and I can look quickly at the section of it, I just saw it, here it is, I went right to it, Article 9, which talks about the collection of solid waste, and that includes yard debris, garbage, and recyclable material. And that's as soon as it's safe for them to get out here, they are required to get out here and keep clearing what you put at your curb or what is ready to be picked up at your side or back door.
Waste Pro is.
Waste Pro is. But
and
the
we have
public
separate-
side has to be done by that private company if we want to get reimbursed for the money we're paying that that other company from FEMA.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I have.
Commissioner Anderson?
Right now, people have side yard pickup, backyard pickup. I see it's in the contract that we will still be able to have backyard, side yard pickup. What is different though, now the resident has to contact the city, fill out some forms, sign an old harmless agreement. Now, if a resident doesn't do that and doesn't wheel their garbage out, it just sits in their yard?
No. We've been thinking about this long and hard because I know that's been a concern of the residents. The requirement from the agreement side, it's clear. Once we tell them who gets side and backdoor service, they have to do it. How we're going to get to that information is the responsibility of the village. So some of the ideas that we have come up with is we've started working with our sanitation employees to identify those who do receive that service. So first and foremost, we're going to make sure that we reach out to them and make sure that we identify that they want to continue that service. They may choose because of their feelings about outsourcing or for any other reason that they don't want to continue the side or backdoor service. So we're not going to make that assumption. We're going to reach out to them and make sure that's something they want. We've also been thinking about, there seems to be some sensitivity about whether if you want it, you should why should you have to call attention to the fact that you want it. So one of the things we're working on is a form where it would be for all village residents to click or check, yes, I want back or side door, or I choose curbside. One form. And that way we have an exact record of everything. That responsibility to get that information and get that form is on the shoulders of us, the village employees, to get that information. And I think that's the best, I think that's a nice solution and a nice compromise. We've heard the concerns and we're trying to find a way that is almost as seamless as possible. So between our institutional knowledge of who gets that service and reaching out to everyone in the village to have this conversation with them, we hope to accomplish that.
There's also been questions on, some people are saying that, okay, if we outsource, we will get more money coming in the general fund. And other people are saying, well, it doesn't make any difference whether we outsource or don't. No more, it won't make any difference to our general fund. What I'd like to find out is if we deduct the administrative fees from the dollars that are coming in from the franchise fee, what is left? Because that would be flowing into the general fund. And we don't want to include the donation of the in-kind donation or $5,000 because that's if it's in-kind, that's not dollars.
I'm not sure I'm following your question. When you add the administration fee and the franchise fee, you come up to about $150,500.
Okay, if you take The admin fee that we're paying now on our sanitation. that
In
goes
this
against
current
the
budget year.
That goes against our budget.
Mhm.
The new admin fee, which is going to be less, so that whatever that less is going to have to be made up by the general fund unless we're going to decrease the amount of people we have. If we're not decreasing out of the administrative part of it, that's going to be more of a burden on the general fund, but we're going to be getting this franchise fee coming in the general fund. What is the difference between those?
The current admin fee is $145,000. The proposed admin fee is about 107 for round numbers, $107,000. So there's a difference there. But we're also picking up about $35,000 in general monies that are used for other things in general funds by outsourcing, by making our public works employees available to do other functions that we are currently paying other people to do in the village.
And
then we are also...
That has to do with our garbage and trash?
No, but it's globally within the general fund. It's money that's still in the general fund.
I know, but that's not part of the sanitation part. I was just talking about the sanitation. I know we're going to be doing things differently, but we're talking about just the sanitation part only. The money, so it's approximately, what I gather, what we're doing is on the franchise fee, we're going to be getting in about $42,000.
Correct.
The hit to the general fund is going to be what, about 30 what, thousand?
28,000.
Okay, 28. So
Hold on,
that's
I'm doing my math
so
really quick.
you subtract those, and that's going to be the increase coming into our general fund for the sanitation part.
38,000, yes.
So we're talking about how much? What was that number?
The difference between the two admin fees between this current year and what we're proposing for next year is 38,000.
So it's 38,000. So we're going to have it's 38,000, and the franchise. But now take that out of the franchise fee.
Correct. So that leaves, that's about 4,000 to 5,000.
So we're going to by outsourcing, for sanitation only, we're going to be gaining about $4,000 or $5,000.
Plus other global general
Well, the other
funds.
global, we could have been doing this before.
Mhm.
That's another issue.
Mhm.
What I see in the contract, that if a resident calls after 12 o'clock that they were missed on pickup, just what you discussed, the contract says the next operating day. My question is what is the next operating day? Is it the next business day? Because they're only going to be operating here 2 days a week.
Yeah, I had the same comment. I think that should be within 24 hours.
Or the next business day. The reason why I'm thinking business day, because if it's Friday.
Right.
Their intention is business day. We can change that language in the franchise fee or franchise agreement.
Because, like I say, I'm just
have that?
quickly
An
going through
agreement?
some of the stuff on the contract.
And that applies, also make that change where if there's a spill or something that...
That's the next thing.
Right, that it's going to be within either the next business day or within 24 hours.
That's what the mayor's talking about, so the public understands.
It says immediately in the...
That's unless it's after, if they're notified after 12 o'clock, it's be the next business day. And what that is hydraulics can break, hydraulics can leak, engines leak oil. It happens. I don't want to end up with a puddle out there in the street that we're looking at 24 hours where that puddle then seeps into the swale area and it disrupts the ground.
We can
Our guys, once they notify it, they're there and they control it. They put booms around there. They do whatever is possible
All right,
so
so
that it doesn't
the next
control it.
operating day is ambiguous, so we're going to
Change it to business or next 24 hours?
Well, with respect to the spill, I think it should be 24 hours.
Yes, I agree.
Within 24 hours?
Okay.
State your name.
Hi, my name is Damon Stinson. I'm representing Waste Pro. in regards to spills. Our trucks are fully equipped to manage any kind of spill or accident. We have spill kits. We also have a in-house company that will respond immediately if there is an issue with any kind of spill. If whatever parameters you want to set. In the majority of our contracts, there's not an outline time. We respond immediately to the attention of the spill as soon as we're notified.
Okay. I'd like to see something in the contract that addresses that, because it doesn't. And we all know, once a contract is signed, and if there's an issue, it's what's in that signed contract, and that's it. Also, too, this is a 5-year contract. And we have really, unless there's material breach of some kind, something major going on, we're stuck. We're stuck for 5 years. And I know that's standard for the contracts, but I just want everybody to realize, if for whatever reason, after year 1, or whatever it may be, people just feel like it's not really working out for us, you got to go wait for those 5 years. When the other part is, if we have a disaster, the contract says you do whatever you can do to be able to get in here to be picking up the garbage, but you're not required to pick up the disaster debris. What is disaster debris? Because I look at it, if I get a high wind comes through here that knocked down some foliage in my yard, even though I could cut it up and put it out there for my normal pickup, that was from a disaster. This to me is ambiguous of what is disaster debris.
Disaster debris, again, reflects that FEMA language, and it's the stuff that is on the public right-of-way where the village has the opportunity to be reimbursed by the federal government.
And that's fine, but the contract doesn't state it that. Doesn't say that. It's just generic.
Sir?
Commissioner, if I may. The spirit of the contract reflects all of the submittals that we put in our proposal, the RFP submission. Let me just read a paragraph from that, and obviously anything that we've submitted to you, you can hold us to. It categorizes these type of events as A and B. A would be winds less than a tropical storm. In that event, we realize that this will create an additional varying amount of yard waste and tree debris, and it will necessitate the use of mostly additional conventional waste collection vehicles, possibly some larger equipment as wheeled loaders and landscape rakes, dump trucks, flagmen, and personnel with chainsaws. Any additional conventional collection of vehicles and personnel would be available from our reliable resources, which would include any of the divisions within the 7 states we operate in. We would mobilize before, if necessary, like I said, winds less than a tropical storm out ahead of it, and we would be prepared to, facilitate any additional debris that would be caused. Because obviously, if a tropical event's coming, we want to be ahead of as much as you, because it impacts our ability to pick up the garbage once everything is, once we get the all clear. So in that event, we want to make sure that we're ahead of the curve as well, and that's stated in our proposal.
Is there an extra fee for that?
No.
Okay. The other thing is the way I'm reading your cover letter, our manager's cover letter on part of this, that Biscayne Park will repair and maintain the maintenance to the medians and roads from the damage that is caused by the garbage trucks. I don't quite understand why we should have to do that.
We're talking the curb cuts that happen. It's just to keep the aesthetics of the village important.
Well, I'm all for keeping the aesthetics, but there's no incentive then for the drivers to being really careful on cutting corners if we're going to be 100% responsible and there's no penalty that or an incentive for them not to.
I think in your submittal you talk about, yeah.
That is correct. Let me just first say that you know, we have a comprehensive bonus plan that includes things like not having property damage occur in terms of part of your route. That being said, it does happen. We do have a safety coordinator who would be specifically for this area. Who, what he does is he goes out, he analyzes the you know, occurrence, and in the event that it is our responsibility or our liability, we do repair those. We get them all the time. I mean, sometimes it's inevitable that you will hit a mailbox or cut a curb, and it's not beyond us to replace that mailbox or put new sod down or whatever it takes to get it done. And it is part of, again, it is part of the RFP documents that we submitted, and you know, obviously that is the spirit of the contract is to let those things prevail if it's silent in the agreement itself, but we wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I'd like to see something in there. Also, right now, our recycling program, of course, it's the small little containers. And some of our residents, once in a while, will have a party, holiday, whatever, and they generate a lot more recycling. And right now what they do is they put it in plastic bags, and they maybe have a little plastic bags around there or on top of the bins. With the rollout cart, whatever size cart, whether they have the smaller size or the bigger size, there will be events that a homeowner will have that cart's not big enough. What do they do with the rest of those recycles for that time period?
Well, I can only speak from experience, and that a 65-gallon cart or even a 35-gallon cart holds a considerable amount more of a recycling than your current bins do. That being said, if there's bags placed on top of the cart, we're going to be held to the same standard in that regard as a missed collection. I mean, what we would tell our people is, you know, if it's, you know, part of that process, we'll collect it. I mean, we want your recycling. And if there's a problem where there's more recycling generated, you know, we'll have ample equipment and manpower available to make sure we recover any of those necessary pickups.
So I'd like to see something in there so it's clear to everybody that you would be doing that.
Again, the 65-gallon cart has a considerable capacity.
Well, I agree, but I can tell you, I'm going to be one of the people that cart I have no place for it, so I'll be having a smaller cart. So I may have that issue, you know, at certain times of the year, and I know I will have the issue at Thanksgiving because I end up with a crowd of people over, and I try to do my part on recycling. And I just want to make sure that there's a document, so it's black and white, whether it's okay to put in a plastic bag, or maybe it's got to be in a cardboard box, you know, something so everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing.
We would be happy to address that in any further negotiations, for sure.
Okay, Mayor.
Anything else?
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Madam Manager, I didn't see insurance requirements in the contract. I may have missed it.
It was towards the end of the.
Did I miss it?
I don't know. It was towards the end. Indemnification.
No. Well, I think that's something that could be negotiated with them. I mean, it's standard language. that
Yeah,
they
there
have to
was some. I
maintain.
wonder if when we move the sections.
Yeah, so they have to maintain
Commissioner Ross, do you see
sufficient
it?
insurance.
I believe that insurance requirements are part of the RFP, and then there's a reference in the contract saying that the RFP submittal, terms of the
Yeah.
RFP submittal are part of the contract.
I remember seeing, we reviewed it.
We can
because
add the cross-reference to make sure
Yeah.
it's in there.
All right, just double check
Yeah.
that. The other comment I have is with respect to quarterly reports, and I guess it's Article 21, regarding complaints, I'd like to see some more detailed language regarding record keeping and reporting. and I can provide that language to you from some of their prior contracts with other municipalities, but, you know, have a detailed complaint log so that we can keep track of what, you know, what the issues that are occurring.
Yes, again, part of our submittal, and I'm referring to section 2.4, which was our customer service plan, includes our tracking software, which is called Track Easy, which is an online tracking software that allows residents, staff, our staff as well as the city staff to, or village staff, to actually go in online, any kind of complaint, comment, request can be made online, and then it actually, you can see in real time from the time that complaint or, again, request is received, as it's given to the supervisor, as it's given to the operations crew, and as it's completed, you can track that real time. That's for any request, not just any complaint or miss or anything in that nature. The software does have a capability to roll up any requests, complaints, comments, compliments into an Excel spreadsheet where we can provide you that data, and we can do that on a monthly, weekly, annual, quarterly, whatever basis that you would desire.
Do you want to still add additional language? We're just keeping a list here.
No, I mean, if it's in the RFP document.
Yeah, and it was something that they presented at the workshops. I remember seeing
Okay.
an example of the Track It program.
Just to back up as well, we did provide you a sample copy of our certificate of insurance and those policies in section 5.2 of our RFP submission.
I know we had.
Okay,
What we'll do is just specifically cross-reference it in your contracts. It doesn't change it substantially, but it makes it easier to find.
Okay. All right, with respect to a more favorable rate, if you negotiate a more favorable rate with other municipalities in Dade County, is there a reason why you're limiting it to Dade County? I mean, I'd like to see Broward added to that. Do you have, what's that?
Just wait, I'm sorry.
You service Broward municipalities as well?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
I mean, I'd like to see that expanded to Broward if you're amenable to that.
Sure. The only stipulation with that is that there are cost differentials with in regards to disposal and some other components in Broward County that are different than Miami-Dade. So I believe that in that clause for the in the favored nations clause, it does stipulate that, you know, it would need to be a similar circumstance. As long as those circumstances were similar in the terms of the agreements and the rates, I don't believe we'd have a problem honoring that, extending there. But again, it can range not just from the cost components and the differences between the two counties, but also the size of the municipality or the complexity or the makeup of the municipality as well. There's a lot of municipalities that have commercial services that are included in a franchise, and that certainly would affect the residential rate component. And so, again, as long as the general terms and the scope is similar, we would obviously, you know, be amenable to that.
We had originally asked for that, and I mean, there are major differences in Broward because of the way the disposal's done and the percentage of cities that do outsource their disposal. It's a different market. So Waste Pro presented that concern to us, and we honored it in our negotiations. But if Damien's ready to do it here, we're
Okay.
still open to it.
All right, any other comments on that issue or other issues?
Well, just one. Actually, I hope that this conversation turns out to not have been necessary, because listening to the people who've spoken about this issue, I think that we should delay any contract negotiations with Waste Pro or any talk of outsourcing. That said, when we think about the fact that I guess that the petition, I first heard about it maybe on Friday or Saturday, and in something like 5 days, we have 327 people who have spoken against privatization and for keeping it in-house. Just think the last election, only 460 people voted. And in 5 days, 327 people came out and said that they're against this. So I think if we want to listen to the people, we should take this into account. That said, I'll have more to say on that later. That said, in this contract, I think the section on the village may choose to levy liquidated damages as outlined below for financial consequences of the contractor not completing a route or some such thing. I think it's very vague because first event, second event, first event written warning, second event $500 a day, third event. Well, what constitutes an event? If a pickup, is it always a pickup on that street or is it a pickup on any street that's not done? I think that it's needs to be tightened up. And what is this that the village may choose to levy damages? Why was that? Why is there some legal term where we have to say may choose?
No, you can change the language if you'd like to make it stronger.
Those who are going to vote for this could think about it. And what is an event? First event, second event, third event? Is it has to be the same house that's not being picked up, or?
I'm not sure I understand your comment.
Okay, well, if, as outlined below, okay, the village may choose to levy liquidated damages, okay, and for something like not completing a route, okay, if it's one specific route or if it's any route constitutes an event. Like the first time a route isn't completed, okay, the second time it's $500, that particular route. What if a different route in the village is done? Does that have to happen twice before on that particular route, or is it all the routes in aggregate?
No, it's a single event. It doesn't say tied to the same property, or it's a single event, any event.
What's the definition of a route, please?
A route would be, well, in this case, it would be all of the units serviced on the
It's
particular.
the whole village?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Barbara, do you have your answer?
Yes, thank you.
Any other comments?
David, are we done with this portion of the discussion, or are we coming back to this?
We have an ordinance to consider, which is the Waste
Right.
Pro contract, so we're discussing that contract.
Okay. And this right now is the one and only discussion on this ordinance for us?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Ross?
So then I'm ready to proceed with my comments on the ordinance. Normally, when we move something in for a discussion, we start off with a motion. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve ordinance 2014-3, granting an exclusive franchise for solid waste collection services to Waste Pro. And then I'll proceed with my comments.
Second for discussion purposes.
Okay, so motion by Commissioner Ross, second by Commissioner Jonas. So we'll have, open it up to discussion.
Okay. I heard some people make comments about transparency, and I think that there may be some confusion about what transparency is. The meaning of transparency is that we have discussion here in front of the public at an advertised meeting, and that we make our decisions here in front of the public, and that the large majority of the materials that the administration puts together in their studies and presents to us, all of those materials are available for the public at Village Hall. They're on our website. If you haven't seen the new website, it's totally revamped, and there's a lot of great information, easily accessed, very intuitive to get through. In addition to that, there were workshops where we discussed the options available to the village. And a lot of people participated in those workshops right here in this room. There was talk of it in our newsletter, perhaps on 2 publications, but certainly on 1. And for anyone who pays attention to the budget, one of the things on the website are our financial statements. They're on the website, I think, going back 10 years. So all of our village financial information is there for anyone who wants to take a look at it If you want to discuss any of this, your commissioners, your administration, any of the people on staff at that administrative level would be happy to discuss it with you. I'm happy to discuss it with you. I've been to several of your homes to discuss it. When I sometimes hear people say that there seems to be some hiding of the numbers, no, it's all there. It's public information. It's even free. It's on the website. You don't have to pay for it. It's there for you. So while I have this open, our financial statements for September 2012. In these financial statements, aside from the clear indication that we were in a financial decline as a village, it also reports that our proprietary fund, that sanitation department, that's supposed to operate on its own, lost $90,000 in the year ended September 2012. Meaning the expenses to operate sanitation exceeded the charges that the village had assessed for sanitation. And those $90,000 had to be subsidized by the general fund. So when I hear people say that doesn't impact, sanitation doesn't impact the general fund, it does. Not only monetarily, but it also impacts on the resources that we could use to benefit other functions of the village. Anyway, we started this discussion on what are the options for sanitation services last summer when we were going through the budget for the entire village. And at that time, the commission, who were 5 people, not necessarily the same 5 that are here today, tasked the manager to find ways to build efficiencies and to find ways that we can increase our reserves in the village because they had been seriously depleted. And the manager back then, in the summer or the fall, not this manager, the manager before her, started analyzing that with staff and started looking at the functions at Public Works and Sanitation. And I know, Mayor Jacobs, you're in the audience. I know you were part of that discussion when we said find ways that we can increase our reserves. So that's when the idea of looking at all of our options for sanitation started developing. When this manager arrived, there was already a draft document for an RFP so that we could compare apples to apples and see what it is that we can do, what it would be to outsource, what it would be to have the function of sanitation kept in-house with the proper equipment, with the properly paid personnel. And on that note, I am embarrassed that we haven't been taking care of our employees for all of these years, and for all of these years that they've been seriously underpaid. So that conversation started last summer. New manager comes, the RFP goes out, she comes before us in January, says, I have this document, staff presented this to me, well, how do you want to proceed with this? The commission in January said, let's put out the RFP, let's see what the numbers are, let's analyze the numbers. And since that time, well, let's go back to the RFP. It was put out, and we had, I think, 4 companies respond. The submittals from those 4 companies were given to a committee. Some of our residents served on that committee, administration served on that committee, administration from other cities that have gone through the same process served on that committee. The manager wasn't on that committee. So those 4 people reviewed the submittals, and they decided that if you choose to outsource, and they weren't asked should we or shouldn't we, but they said if you choose to outsource, this is the company that we recommend you go with. So now we had that element set up. The manager went through her assessment of what it would take, in conferring with staff, what it would take to keep the operations in-house. We had workshops, 2 of them. We went through the process some more, chewed on that, let it simmer, brought it back, Subsequently, some of the commission weren't satisfied with the in-house proposal that she had prepared, so she was told, go back and rework this. And so she went and consulted experts, people who have experience in the field. I believe he was a retired gentleman from another public works department. And they reworked the in-house option. And they came back not with one, but with 4 options of what it would take to keep the operations in-house. And we reviewed all of that information, and so we're here today to make a decision. Personally, in my home, I wish I didn't have to be here to make this decision. But I am. And so I have to decide it from a fiscally responsible perspective. I'm happy that we have all of the data gathered, that this is one of the decisions made in the village that has the most amount of information and data on which to base it. We're not deciding this on a whim. We're not deciding this on personal favor or personal position. We're deciding on what is the best thing to do for the village in order to support sustainability, in order to help increase our reserves, in order to keep us going as the community that we are.
Mayor.
We've learned a lot through this whole process, and when I first entered it, I was firmly against outsourcing. In my mind, when we started down this path, I thought, perfect. Now, at least, we're going to get to a point where we can pay our people what they deserve to be paid. We can have the equipment that we need so that they're efficient in their operations and feel productive at what they do. We can get to a place where we tell people, this is what it's going to cost you, we've done the research, and people will be accepting of it. And as we went through the process, I learned that that's really not the best option for us. Because a company like Waste Pro can come in and do solid waste pickup for substantially less than it costs us to do it in-house. And we can still have a public works department. And we can still have public works employees taking care of the things, being repurposed to take care of the things that are important to our community, taking care of our medians, making sure that our streets are clean, maintaining our public properties. We will still have people, boots on the ground, doing that work for us and doing it better. I've gone through the contract from the last meeting, prior to the last meeting. I worked with the manager and met with her several times on it. She was able to work some of the, first of all, she did a great job negotiating with Waste Pro. And then she did a really good job incorporating some of the concepts that I wanted to see incorporated in the contract. One of them is that most favored nation clause, so that if another city gets a better rate, we can buy into that rate. Another thing that was incorporated was an ability to terminate the contract if we're not satisfied, or if Waste Pro is not doing the job that they agreed to do in this contract, there's an ability to terminate. If Waste Pro is not doing the job that they agreed to do in this contract, there are liquidated damages. It's set out. This is what the fine will be if you are not providing the service that you say you provide. All of these things protect the village, and I think that we're going to end up with a better product. Oh, one other thing that wasn't mentioned was that the employees are being offered positions with Waste Pro. In fact, Waste Pro is wanting of their service and their knowledge because they know the community. And so if they go with Waste Pro, they'll be servicing our city as they did before and actually getting paid more than we pay them. It's been sort of a torturous journey getting here. It really has. And It's something that we've been mashing on for quite a while. I just want to say, to speak to the petition that was put out, and no one approached me with the petition, so I don't know what sort of information was given or offered to people who were signing the petition. But on the face of the petition it says, "Save our public works." Well, what we're doing here is outsourcing one function of the Public Works Department, and we're still going to have a Public Works Department. So based on that, and based on what people have said to me, people who were offered the petition and refused to sign it, what those people have said to me, I don't have a lot of trust in the information that was being put out in order to convince someone to sign a petition that on its face is really not accurate. I always point to the village website, and if you want the accurate information, that's where it is. That's where the facts are. Everyone can have an opinion about this or that, but we all have to rely on the same facts, and the information is there on the website. So, I encourage you to go there to look for it. Don't let someone give you the Reader's Digest version, because there is none, really, and it's unfair to expect 5 bullet points to explain something, a process that's taken us all of these months to go through. I'm satisfied that the contract is the best thing for the village. I've done my research. We've talked about it here. I've talked to people in other cities who are with Waste Pro, and I think that it's a good thing for the village.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, I just hope we don't vote on a contract until we actually have a clean copy of it, because we've asked for numerous changes to be done in the contract, and I'd like to make sure those changes were done.
Typically, those changes, they're taken down by the manager and the clerk, and they can be made after the meeting. There's no issue with that.
You do that quite often. I mean, in most of the contracts we've worked on, you've given me your amendments, and then it's my job to make sure that they're done. If, after you've finished discussing, if you'd like, I can go through. I've written down what I understand to be 8 possible amendments.
Okay. Great.
I'm sorry, just one more comment is, because this is the second reading of an ordinance, we actually need to have, in listening to this discussion, I heard maybe 2 things that someone wanted changed in the contract, and since it's a second reading, if you could work on that language while we finish our discussion, I would feel more comfortable voting on it.
Well, can I just tell you what they are, and that may make it easier?
Yeah,
the first item is page 3, Article 7, as to the missed collections, and this will go also for page 4, Article 8, as to spillage, from changing it from next operating day to next business day and not more than 24 hours. That is what I've understood from the consensus on the dais. So that's changes 1 and 2, and that would be the specific language. Number 3, 4, and 5 are really cross-references. It would be an insertion into the written contract from the RFP as it relates to insurance, responsibility for the curb maintenance, as indicated by the vendor, that they had that in the RFP, would just put the cross-reference in, and 5 as to record keeping, which I believe you, the mayor, brought up and is also in the RFQ response, and would just be the cross-reference to that section so we know where to look for it. Okay, as for the most favored nations clause, it would be to include Broward County, provided there is a similar scope due to tipping, commercial franchise, size of the agreement, etc., but basically it would be a similar scope, is what I understood. They're willing to expand the most favored nations clause to a similar scope and include Broward County. The next item is to correct may choose to shall under Article 15 as to the liquidated damages provision, which was Commissioner Watts' item. Lastly, I'm sorry, what did I say? Commissioner Watts, I'm sorry. The last item was you wanted more defined language on the recycling pickup, so the point would be under the recycling section that if the recycling exceeded the container, it would be picked up.
Okay.
I think I've covered all of the issues that were raised.
Yes.
What I offered regarding amending bullet point 5 and exhibit C, which would be to add the language placed out on the wrong day. And I have that for the attorney right here, actually, in writing.
Thank you. So that would be in 9th item.
Okay, Commissioner Jonas, comments?
Yeah, this has been extraordinarily difficult. I would not have anticipated that any issue would have been as difficult as this one is. There are essentially two opinions, one of them that we should outsource and the other that we shouldn't. Each opinion has excellent legitimacy to it. I'll say at the outset that I don't think there's any reason that people who don't want to outsource should be referred to as dim-witted or careless, and I don't think there's any reason that people who do want to outsource should be referred to as arrogant or heartless. I think we are being unfair to ourselves and each other when we divide this issue that way. I want to address one of the things that came up during earlier comments, and that was about the complaint registered by a number of people that they were not adequately informed and that it was unfair and unreasonable to have this discussion and consider going forward with it without adequate information. At the time those kinds of comments were made, this room was full. It's now less than half full. When the people who had that issue were here and were talking about it, they were content to stay. As soon as that conversation ended, and it was time for us to get the information that people complained they didn't have, they left. Some of them didn't even go home. Some of them stood in the lobby with the door closed. What, Matt?
All right.
That's fine, but I'm going to make my comment anyway. They were able to stay long enough to hear themselves talk, so they needed to stay long enough to hear everybody else talk as well. One of the big complications of this issue, and sort of an obvious one, is that there is a fairly large group of people, not large in terms of the whole neighborhood, but large in terms of the people who talk, who don't want to outsource. And there has been a sense that those people should be listened to, especially if they outnumber the people who say they do want to outsource. For me, that was the biggest issue. My original position was that I would advocate for anybody, even the people who didn't want to outsource, under two conditions. One was that they be in the majority, and the other was that they agree to pay whatever it would cost us not to outsource. Frankly, I don't really know what the majority is. I know what the majority of people who come to that podium on a night like this is. I will remind you that when we had the first of the listening sessions, there was a group of people in this room. Many of them came to the podium, and I would say that, in my memory, 100% of them did not want to outsource. That was at the beginning of the meeting with essentially no information. At the end of the meeting, a secret ballot was taken. Anybody who wanted a ballot could have one, and they filled it out, and they said they wanted to outsource or they didn't want to outsource. The result of that ballot, same room full of people, was 50-50. Now, what was not clear was whether half the people who said they didn't want to outsource changed their minds, or people said they didn't want to outsource, but they didn't really mean it, and now they were willing to be honest, or different people voted than spoke. I have no idea, but I know that there was a big difference between what people said at the podium and what they wrote on a secret ballot. There is a public Biscayne Park blog that some people participate in, either by writing blog posts or writing comments. I will tell you that the vast majority of those people want to outsource. So if I had to say, what do the people of Biscayne Park want, I really don't know. And I'll tell you that once you subtract all the people who speak and the 327 people who signed a petition, you're left with the very substantial majority of Biscayne Park. So I don't know what they think. They don't tell anybody. if I had to guess what they think, I would say they're probably relatively disconnected. They probably don't much care about anything. And the thing that would really get their attention is a really high sanitation bill. Then I'd hear from them. That would be my guess. But I don't know because they don't say what they think. In terms of the other part of this issue, which is that the spoken voice should be listened to, in one sense, I would say, you know, maybe that's debatable. Should it really? Should people have their say and their sway no matter what they think just because they're in a majority? Is that really enough? If it is enough, then we have to think back to earlier times in this room, and I would introduce as one of those times January of 2012, when the fence ordinance had been kicking around for about a year and a half. It had come back to the commission yet again, and there was a lineup of people that came to that podium, and they all, every single one of them, wanted the same thing. They wanted a ruling. And some of them said they didn't even care what the ruling was. They just couldn't plan for their properties until they knew what was permitted and what was not permitted in terms of fencing. At that time, a majority of the commission, 3 out of the 5, listened to all of those people say that they really wanted and needed a conclusion, and that majority said, no, you're not getting one, we're going to delay. Just the thing you don't want us to do, that's exactly what we're going to do. Some of those people are in this room tonight, and I will also tell you, because Steve Bernard is here, and he was one of the people who spoke that night, that at the end of the meeting, for final public comment, he addressed the commission and that majority. What he told them was that he congratulated them. He referred to them as courageous in being able to withstand the pressure of neighbor after neighbor coming to that podium with exactly the same demand and telling them no. Which truth would you like to hear?
Guys, come on.
Listen to the recording, Steve.
Fred.
I will also tell you that last year, a number of people, Matt, I'm talking now about last year, so pay attention.
Guys.
Last year, maybe 6 months, maybe 8 months ago.
He's calling on residents here, so then you're responding to the
Commissioner, just make your statements.
A number of people came to that podium, and every single one of them wanted the same thing. What they wanted was that the commission should not take village money to pay for a mural. Every single person who came to the podium asked for exactly the same thing. The same majority from a year and a half ago told them the same thing. No. We hear what every one of you says. Nobody wants us to do this, but we're going to do it anyway. So I think it's a little glib and it's a little unfair to say that commissioners should simply do whatever they think some majority of the people wants them to do, at least a majority of the moment in a certain place. What's confusing, Gary?
Guys, the public comment period is over. Commissioners.
I didn't ask you unless your name is Gary.
Commissioner.
talking about here? Waste Pro or?
Excuse me, wait, excuse me. Just make, Commissioner.
So what I'm left with,
just make your statements, and we're not going in a back and forth dialogue.
what I'm left with is the difficult decision of having to do what a number of people in this room say they want, and what I think is frankly best for the neighborhood. Now, there is one other rule that I set for myself about this, and that is that I'm willing to do what people want as long as they're willing to pay for it. Once they're not willing to pay for it anymore, once people say, sure, we'll pay for it, but then they come forward and they say, however, it doesn't really have to cost that much, then I can't really have confidence in them. My issue with Mr. Madar, who is not here anymore, is not that I thought he wasn't being truthful. It's that he made an offer, which was an irrelevant offer, but then he didn't act on it. And when I hear people come forward and they say, well, we'll pay whatever it costs, but not if it costs that, then I can't rely on them. What that means is that if I vote not to outsource, and the bill gets really high, I will hear from the same people who didn't want to outsource telling me that the bill's too high and it didn't need to be that high. Now, we have one manager. We don't need a bunch of managers. We don't need a bunch of people telling us how many garbage trucks we need and how many people we should hire. We have somebody who does that. The job of the people who live here, if they don't want to outsource, is to agree to write the check, not tell the manager and the Public Works Department what the service really ought to be. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mayor. Wait, excuse me. No, the public comment period. Ma'am, you can't scream out in the middle of a meeting. Do you have any respect for anything? Stop talking. Stop talking. The public comment period is over. Stop talking.
He shouldn't be talking to the audience.
Stop talking.
I will.
You're being disrespectful.
That's true.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Watts.
I have loads of things to say, but first, I heard of this plan that Commissioner Anderson has for keeping it in-house for a year, and I would like to know before the discussion goes further what the possibilities are there, and I would like to contribute to that discussion. I think that before we make any decision, we have to see about what we should do. There are possibilities, and we could be financially responsible to the village by keeping it in-house as well as by outsourcing. So I would like to hear what Commissioner Anderson has to say. So, and this is proof positive that the sunshine laws were kept up, were abided by, because I had no idea until I came here that this was going on.
I'm sorry. Earlier in the meeting, we changed the order of the agenda, and I specifically said I think we should keep the order of the agenda because as it's set, we will have an ability to hear Commissioner Anderson's plan that I learned from one of the speakers, and I was voted down on that. So right now we're talking about the ordinance that has to do with the franchise contract, and that's what the discussion should be.
Yeah, I don't see the harm of hearing as part of this discussion on the franchise agreement. If you want to raise a point,
I'll be glad to. We're up against the wall. We have to go ahead and put in the dollar amount that we're going to be sending in the county tonight. It's got to be submitted, what our sanitation fee is going to be. I propose what we ought to do is send into the county as if we're keeping a dollar amount that can't get changed, so we're all going to have to pay when our tax bill comes, as if we're going to keep it in-house so we can keep, then we're not up against the wall on getting this contract signed. We have the time to really discuss it. If it shows through the discussion process that we should outsource it, the rate that's going to be charged is going to be less. That extra money that we're all paying has to stay in the sanitation fee, and it will be rebated the following year's rate back. All what I'm proposing is to give us some more time to go ahead and have a true discussion.
We have a motion and a second on the table. It is discussing an ordinance. Had we not changed the agenda order, maybe we could have had a decision on what Commissioner Anderson's proposing right now, but that's not the topic of discussion.
Okay, but he's bringing this up as part of his comments on this ordinance.
Okay.
Okay. Listen, my position, I understand what you're saying, and I think that's pushing this decision down the road yet again. And I think it's about time that this community and this commission makes difficult decisions. Again, I said this all last meeting, but I'll reiterate it again. These are difficult decisions. I take this job seriously. If you all look at the numbers and look at the budget, our backs are against the wall. We have no money, okay? And how does this benefit our general fund? Well, when our roads need to be improved and we have no money in our general fund to do it, by outsourcing, we're going to save a significant amount of money without charging you residents any more money. We're going to put that over $150,000 a year in savings. We're going to put that towards a road fund, okay? We're going to be able to fix our roads. Okay, excuse me. Okay, we're going to save that money our tax rate is already 9.7. How are we going to go and ask residents to pay the highest tax rate, the highest sanitation rate that any community pays, and we're going to just keep on tacking on expenses? And meanwhile, our community, we don't have any money to fix anything in our community. We don't have the money. So something's got to give. Difficult decisions need to be made. Annexation is a long shot. So as I said the last meeting, we're paying way too much for a service, for the same service that we can get for significantly less money by a company a professional company that's all they do. It's no secret that the private sector can do something much more efficient than the public sector. And I value our employees. I value all of your opinions. I recognize that this is a difficult decision. But in the end, I need to do what's fiscally right for the village so that we can sustain ourselves. The road we're on now is not sustainable. And if you all want to become part of Dade County, that's the option. And as I said last time, this is not a scare tactic. This is reality. If you look at the numbers, we don't have money. We're just squeezing by every budget cycle. Wouldn't it be nice to have some excess money to actually improve our community and improve our property value so we all benefit? That's what we're talking about here. And so, you know, I'm voting for outsourcing.
David, can I make one more comment?
Sure.
I just wanted to say that one of the strong sentiments of people who don't want to outsource comes from feelings of appreciation or sympathy toward the people who work for us. And the assertion is that those people are being fired, let go, dismissed, or something else. Nothing like that was ever proposed. We were very careful in choosing a possible outsource contractor to find one who would cheerfully absorb all of our sanitation workers. So if any of those people still wants to do what they've been willing to do for us, they are more than welcome to do it, and they'll do it here, and they'll get paid more. So I really don't think it's at all fair to say that anybody has been unappreciative of them or has acted in a way that did not look out even for their better interests.
And Heidi, just to clarify, there's currently 7 employees.
There's 6.
6 employees. And we're proposing to retain 5 employees full-time?
We are it's apples and oranges. There's 6 sanitation, there's 6 sanitation employees, and there's 3 other employees currently in the other part of the public works function, which includes the general public works and then roads. 1 in general, 2 in roads, 6 in sanitation. The 3 that make up general public works and roads will be retained. And when we get to the discussion on the assessment, we were going to discuss that we've identified 2 vacancies in the general government side of the budget that through some of the administration fee and sanitation, we would be able to accommodate 2 with the most seniority of the sanitation employees. So 2 of those 6 we would be able to absorb into the general budget, and with 4 having the opportunity to work with WastePro.
So then in that case, the money that we get from the franchise fee from WastePro would essentially be a wash. It would be no more funny money in the
I'm sorry.
because we'll be paying for 2 more employees.
No, because
They were budgeted in this current fiscal year, and they haven't been filled. One is in the one is in Public Works, and one is in a part-time position in Parks and Rec that we have determined is not necessarily needed through proper scheduling and management of employees.
So if we can get along with now 6 employees, why don't we figure out a budget and see what the budget would be with salary and benefits for the 6 employees and keep it in-house? And then, because I wonder, did you plan in the budget for the workers' compensation? Because it seems as though none of the employees do want to go to WastePro. And based on my just talking with the state of Florida about workers' comp, will probably cost us at least $29,700 this year for workers' comp if these employees do not get jobs and do not find jobs and do not take a job.
I think you're referring to unemployment, not workers' comp?
Or unemployment, yes.
Would you like to share with Commissioner Watts your discussions with the Florida Department of State or the state of Florida?
We contacted them, and according to the current data, which
Yes, I do too.
It's, here it is. There is a maximum of, I believe, I don't know how many
$275 a week.
weeks it is. I don't have it here real quick, but it's $4,400 per employee.
Now, I was told today when I spoke with the Florida Economic Opportunity Office that that someone who worked 10 or 20 years or 10 years or even 2 years would be eligible for the maximum, which would be, if the salary were commensurate, so someone, say, making $20,000, just to keep it easy, would make the maximum, which would be $275 a week. With 6 employees, that comes out to for 4.5 months, because I was told that it's between 4 and 5 months, and it differs with each kind of thing. That would be over $29,000.
You're corrected, the $275 max per week, but there's a maximum of 16 weeks.
I was told 4 to 5 months.
Right here, the Department of, Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. They're the ones that you
Yeah.
file with the unemployment with.
Right. Well, still we have to pay for that, which will cut into our budget.
And if I may, Manager, it is in the budget. There's a transition contingency, and it's in there.
All right, okay. But I really think that Commissioner Anderson's idea that we put this off, I know it's hard to make a decision, but I think that we have to think not just of fiscal responsibility for the village. We are a village, but we're more than that, and it's just not about more than about dollars. If we want to sustain the village, we have to sustain what it is. It's ethos, it's mores. We all talk about, we look at the website, and it's always family values, family values. Whenever I hear that, I think it's baloney. It's a lot of rhetoric. But here in Biscayne Park, we are a family. And, you know, the people on my block who didn't come to this meeting, you know, when I talked about it, before I knew it was going to really be an issue when we were just discussing it. And they all went, oh, no, they're like family to me. There's more than one person said that. And these workers, you know, do look out for us and act as a family, and we will be changing their lives materially if we outsource and they even go to Waste Pro and have to travel all the way up to Pembroke Pines and back. In a day, travel time is, you know, affects the quality of your life. So we're not being nice to the workers, and the workers have said that even though they would love a raise, money has never been the issue. Okay, so that I don't think it's disingenuous to say that they would have a better life looking or working for Waste Pro. We're more than a village that needs money. We're also a village that has a certain kind of values, a certain core family values. I'd rather give up, you know, spending $1,000 on a movie night that 100 people go to than give up our workers. And I think we could sacrifice a few other things. And I think that also one other thing that we didn't look into was actually the amount of money that we could get if we did eventually do our own recycling. It's very hard to compare our village to others because we don't have commercial, and we're a small village. But I did look into for the Lauderdale by the Sea, which is one of the few communities that's about our, a little bit more than our population, but it also doesn't have much in way of commercial. And their population, you know, goes from 6,000 people during the year to throughout the year to about 10,000 people during the season. Okay, they started recycling just a few years ago. Okay, the streamlined recycling. Okay, and they actually have an income of over $34,000. At one year, last year, it was over $36,000 in income from recycling. All right, I did the math, and I know you'll all say Barbara doesn't know how to do math and all, but I did the math basically on taking their high level of population and by the number of residents, 10,000 people versus the amount of money that they took in through recycling. And it came to something like, oh, I don't remember numbers, so many, 30-some dollars per person. And that would be the lowest case scenario. And I then did the comparison to how many people we have, how many households and residents we have in Biscayne Park. We could possibly, if we really had an energetic and vibrant recycle program and did the streamed recycling, we could possibly make over $100,000 a year. Okay, that would more than cover the problems that we've got in terms of money. And so I think that there are more creative ways to look at this issue than just going to privatization, which again, as I said, I talked to a colleague at FIU and he said, privatization, I have one word for you. And I said, what? I couldn't remember. He said, Vista. And oh my God. The people did not do the jobs, and we do their jobs, and we did go back to in-house cleaning services. I think then, too, the poll and a referendum is necessary. We need to hear, we do have problems in communicating and spreading the word. so that people don't feel that something's been pushed down their throats. So I do think that we should either have revise our polling apparatus and give money into the budget so that we could go door to door and get people's emails so that we can really inform them. Or I think with the amount of people who signed up or signed for this petition, and the petition had various different wordings, and not all of them said save our public works. A lot of them said save our sanitation. I think that we owe it to the people, and we owe it to the meaning of Biscayne Park. And if you think we're a family, it just doesn't mean, oh yeah, we're a family, and let's show cute pictures of kids blowing bubbles. It means we take care of our own. And I think it's a disservice to the people and the workers here, our employees, and it doesn't suggest anything about the ethos and mores of Biscayne Park. And if we want to be special, a village means more than it's more than just a word. And I think that we have the means, if we keep what we did last year and buy one truck, not two, and we can just raise the sanitation rate $21, $25 if we want to give them a raise or give them a bonus. I think that we should be able to keep this in-house, and it's premature, and I think what has been pushed through, even though on paper you can say, oh, we gave this notice out and this was in the newspaper.
Okay, Commissioner Ross.
Just to address a couple of those points very briefly is, we are currently sort of at ground zero with regard to our sanitation department. Our equipment has to be, new equipment has to be purchased, a substantial amount of equipment has to be purchased, a substantial amount of capital improvements have to be made. We are at the lowest point of employees in the sanitation department, which used to be 9 or at one point 11, I think. And now we're down to 6 people, of which 2 we're trying to find some accommodation for by repurposing in the village. So if we're going to do this, this is the time to do it. We've said we need to do things a different way. We've said we can't keep the status quo, and we can't keep operating the way we're operating because we're heading in a declining condition. So if we consider the amount of money that we would have to put in to re-equip the sanitation, the amount of money that we would have to invest because we're not attracting employees to take the vacant positions. This is why they haven't been filled. And when someone goes on vacation or someone has a doctor's appointment or someone calls in sick or gets hurt, it creates a big hole that we have to keep filling with other bodies from other departments, meaning those functions don't get done. If this doesn't work, if this situation with Waste Pro goes sour and they have a very reputable reputation, they're very reputable. People I've spoken to in other cities are happy with their services. Elected officials I've spoken to in other cities say it's the best thing I ever did for my city. But if that all goes sour and it doesn't work, we can try bring it back in. We would have to go through the same expenses. We would have to bring it to the same, excuse me. We would have to bring things to the same standards that are required. We would have to go through the same expenses of getting equipment and putting in that capital. But if we don't do anything differently, if we just maintain the same thing and keep operating like yesterday, we're going nowhere.
Why is it behooving on Public Works to fix our budgetary problems?
This is one step in the right direction. We're going to look at other things. Budget season coming up. This is one step. Any other comments?
I'd say we call the question.
Before you do,
take a recess.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
No. There's no public comment. It's closed.
You're in the contract. When there's a
Sir.
Who's going to keep the money on special pickup?
Sir.
Raise Pro or Biscayne?
It's in there.
Okay.
Can I know about it?
Mayor, I'm sorry, but just
on
one
the website.
question, just procedurally, because you did talk about a number of amendments, so did anybody want to make a motion to pass the 9 amendments?
So
There's
moved.
a motion on the floor. And you
Because
just
right
need to
now,
amend it
you
to the
need
floor.
that before you...
I revise my motion to approve the ordinance with the amendments that were discussed in our debate.
Thank you.
Before we've
Okay.
heard the details of Commissioner Anderson's suggestion for
No, wait.
police officer,
Stop. Can you answer the question?
before knowing we're going to make a
Excuse me.
decision.
Can you answer the question regarding the pickup?
Exhibit C,
Pickup, or I went over the size, who's going to charge?
I'm asking the question.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to tell you, who's going to take the picture?
Exhibit C, bullet point 5 says that it will be, Waste Pro will pick it up and they will retain the fee. The fee is set by village resolution. They cannot come in and set their own fees. It is set by village resolution.
Okay, thank you.
They're doing the function, they're keeping the fee.
Okay, thank you.
Is
All
there
right,
a second
so
to the motion?
There's a, I'm sorry?
Was there a second to
Yeah,
Commissioner
there's a
Ross's
motion by
amendment?
Commissioner Ross to incorporate those amendments, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Jonas. Roll call.
Maria?
Commissioner Jonas?
Yep.
Commissioner Anderson?
No.
Vice Mayor Watts?
This is ramming it down the throats of people in Biscayne Park who do not want it. I think we need to hear more of what Commissioner Anderson has said, and we need to consider the possibility of keeping it in-house. No.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
And Mayor Coviello?
Yes.
There'll be confidence.
All right, we are going to,
Would you like me to read Resolution 2014-41?
yes, thank you.
A resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, establishing the annual waste fee assessment for the Village of Biscayne Park for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2014, providing for severability, inclusion, and an effective date.
Coordinating.
Okay, staff?
Yes. Based on the terms of the Waste Pro franchise agreement and expenses to the village, the solid waste management fee assessment, commonly known as the assessment for fiscal year 2014-2015, will be $467 per residential structure or unit. This is an annual decrease of $105 per residential unit. This assessment will decrease in the following fiscal year by approximately $70 due to one-time costs included in this fiscal year's budget. This $467, as I previously discussed, includes a percentage of 5 Public Works employees, 2 of which will transfer from the Sanitation Division to the Public Works Division. We are available for comments or questions.
Commissioner Ross?
My only comment is, and I made it to the manager when we spoke about the agenda item, is where there's a reference to 605,655. I think it's missing a phrase, and just to give it context, that it should be based on a total budget of 605,655.
The
Okay.
fifth whereas in
That's in
section
the
2.
the fifth whereas clause, right?
Line 31.
And in section 2.
Okay, so, any other comments?
Just, Mayor, I want to just bring one thing to your attention. Once this is done, this is because it goes to the property appraiser, or to the tax collector, I should say. The next step would be amending your ordinance to reflect these numbers.
Which we will do during the budget season when we do all the other budget ordinances.
Fine, okay. All right.
I have a question on that, procedurally, whether we were required to advertise this, and was it, or is that the process we do when we do the ordinance?
When we do the ordinance.
Okay, very good. Then I make a motion that we accept the manager's recommendation and approve Resolution 2014-41.
Okay, motion by
Second.
Commissioner Ross, second by Commissioner Jonas. All in favor?
Aye.
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 No.
Okay.
3-1.
3-1.
All right. Would you like me to read the last ordinance on the agenda, Mayor?
Yes, please, thank you.
It's item 6A, ordinance 2014-02, an ordinance of the Village of Biscayne Park pursuant to section 166.041 of the Florida statutes to amend ordinance 2013-12 adopted on November 20th, 2013, finalizing and adopting the annual operating budget for fiscal year 2013-2014 by amending various parts of the budget consistent with Exhibit A attached here too, providing for conflict, severability, and effective date, passed at first reading on May 6, 2014. And
Irwin is not here?
Irwin Zale, please forgive him.
That's fine.
He's dealing
This is
with
second
some
reading.
illness
He
this
presented
week.
on first reading.
There's been no changes between first and second reading.
Okay.
we need to open it up also for...
Oh, I'm sorry. Any public comment with respect to this item? Seeing none, close the public hearing.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Jonas, second by Commissioner Anderson. Roll call.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Jonas?
Yep.
Mayor Coviello?
Yes. All righty, 7A. I think we're going to have a discussion of Recreation Advisory Board's request to fundraise at all village events.
I guess this is an item that I have about,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
this is the item that I have, I guess, I wrote the original memo from January of last year. You basically have a process. Your code has talked about no board or committee may engage in fundraising activities or establish bank accounts without the express authority and without the specific conditions of the elected officials, the village commission. You did create a nonprofit, which was your fundraising arm. This issue had come up previously, and so according to the memo, there were several options provided to you that not all these boards, none of them are an independent entity. They all report to you. They don't have any authority to contract or anything else. So if you don't want to go through your nonprofit fundraising arm, which is what you specifically created, then each of these boards needs to come to you for authorization to either collect funds, where does it go? I mean, do you want that involved with the manager? You need to make those decisions.
Okay.
Ultimately, the reason you created the nonprofit was to do your fundraising for you, that you had a secure bank account, that you had checks and balances.
Okay, so
Dan Samaria, 1030 Northeast 121st Street, chairperson of the Recreation Board. The last commission, before this one, we had set up, and the board agrees to do that. We have no problem with where we come in front of the commission, ask permission a month before the event, or 2 months, whatever. And any fundraising we do, the money check will be made out to the foundation, village foundation, and they will put it in a separate account, which is what they have been doing for us. And if we need any money to go to any particular thing in the rec center, we would have to go in front of the foundation and request and explain what the money is to be used for, and then the foundation would make a check. That seems to have been working since the last commission. Reason why, I don't know why it went back to the village, but we had it originally in the foundation because the foundation, we could decide if we want to carry the money over from year to year. That was a solution that the board had concerns about, because we didn't want them. We were told by the village that at the end of the year, if it was in the village of Biscayne Park, that the money would have to be spent by September.
Never said that.
But that's what I was told.
okay.
Okay, so
Comments?
Yeah, I do have some concerns with structure on, as far as an entity that's wearing a village hat and taking in funds, but there isn't any strict accountability for it. I think that our auditors are going to have a real problem with it. Actually, for several years, we would get written up on our financial statements, our audit statement, for transactions that happened here at the rec center. And it's not a question of dishonesty. That's not what I'm bringing up. It's a question of having documentation and having the right controls to satisfy our auditors.
but that's done with the foundation.
Any other comments?
That's done with the foundation.
I see it's pretty clearly what our attorney just said was written. I think it's pretty clear of what needs to be done. And this was written back in January 29th of 2013. And it's basically through the foundation.
Okay, so
Dan, do you have a problem with the current system?
What, the money going to the foundation? No, I don't have.
It doesn't
do I
go
have
to
a
the
problem going
foundation,
to
it's
city?
held by the foundation.
Yes, going to the city. What, meaning, as far as having the money go to the foundation?
Is that a problem?
No, that's what I'm saying. We agree with that. We want that to where the money will go to the foundation. The foundation puts it up in an account that they have set up for the rec center, which they're holding money.
Mr. Samara, let me just make it clear for you. The only thing I think that, from what I can see from the minutes.
Eve, hold on a second. Dan, what's the problem?
There
What
is
is it
no
we're
problem. The village is the one
Wait,
that's
wait a
saying there's a
minute.
problem.
Is the issue is that he wants to accept money and then transfer it to the foundation? Is that
I'm
the
not
issue?
really sure what the problems are, but from what I've seen from the minutes, there are a couple of things. All of these boards can't just decide to fundraise. We need to make clear that they have the authorization from you as a commission and from the nonprofit.
The way we have done this is that anybody who wants to raise funds has to do it in collaboration, either with the village or the foundation, because one of those two is nonprofit. And each individual board cannot be autonomous and nonprofit.
You're absolutely correct. None of the boards are autonomous.
Right.
And they always, they may have to go to the nonprofit for the collection of the funds and agreement on the, for that fund, but they work for the commission. They have to go to the commission. I mean, that's just the way it works. They are appointed by the commission. They're not appointed by the nonprofit.
But Commissioner Ross, was one of your concerns was that the Parks and Rec Board was actually receiving money, right? The issue
Right.
Okay. And that's what
And we turn the
you're
money
proposing
over to the
do.
foundation and to the village, yes.
But there has to be some mechanism of reporting and accounting for it.
Would
It's
you
done
like
through-
perhaps
it's
the
done through
auditors
the foundation.
to give guidance?
I'm sorry?
I said, would you perhaps on that issue like to talk to the auditors? Perhaps they can give you some guidance on the details on how to work that out.
Okay.
That may resolve that issue for you, Commissioner Ross.
I just think it's cleaner that any money that's fundraised should go directly to the foundation. There shouldn't be a middle entity.
Correct.
Who's the middle?
You, the Parks and Rec Board.
Well, does the foundation, or do you want to stand behind the table and start popcorn?
Well,
Well, that's the whole issue, whether they should be allowed to do that, correct?
right. And since we created the law, the ordinance that set up all of the boards, we probably should be following the law. And that ordinance says that advisory committees, advisory boards do not have the authority to fundraise.
Okay, what happens if
The foundation specifically
Okay, what
does.
happens if an individual at each of the events rents a table with a fee that, let's say hypothetically, the village charges $100 to a company to sponsor an event, and the company decides to buy stuff and sell it at the table, but not sell it. He gives the stuff away and then just asks for donations, and then the money goes to the foundation. Isn't that the same thing? Let's say, hypothetically, because I do it, my company, for any of the events that the recreation boards, any foods or anything, my company buys it and donates it to the rec board. There should be no reason why, if you're charging me a fee, and I don't care what the fee you're going to charge my company to do it, I should be able to, at my table, if I want to give food away to the public, be able to give food away to the public and ask for donations.
But that's handled differently because it's a donation, correct?
Okay, if that's the problem, then that's exactly what I'll do. I'll pay the fee, because I'm the one that buys the food anyway.
But you're doing it in your capacity as the Park and Rec Board.
No, I will not. If that's what you're telling me that I can't do, then I won't do that as in parking.
David,
I will.
the foundation is considered to be a co-sponsor of any activity that raises money. And any money that's raised, if it's, let's say, by check, check is to be made out to the foundation.
Right.
And then with a memo to RAB
Right,
or something.
that's right, and they open up a separate account for us, which is what they have done already. I mean, they're holding money for us already.
The problem is if you're wearing that hat that says you're the Recreation Advisory Board, then you're representing the village, and that's where all of the conflict
So-
happens.
Question I'm asking you, then I won't wear the hat as a record. At the events, with all due respect, I'm the only one out of my board, because the rest of the people have families.
Okay,
I
so
don't-
what's the name of your company?
Well, of course, I mean, Creepy Critters
All right,
Pesking
Creepy
Company.
Callers is going to have a table at
Right.
an event, and they're going to sell.
Well, no, okay, if I can't sell anything, then I will give the food away and ask for donations. And then the proceeds from those donations can go to the foundation, and then I will tell the foundation what I want the money to be spent on.
So,
It's the same thing. Huh?
so you will ask, so
No,
you
I already checked. It's legal. That's exactly, I already checked with my accountant on what I can do.
Commissioner
So
Ross,
the
would you...
donations will be asked for for the benefit of the
The
foundation.
foundation, right. I'll say
as
that the money will go to the foundation and will go towards the rec board.
Who's going to buy the food or whatever else it is you give away?
Nobody. I just, at the event.
You just said you were going to give away food, and
well, okay.
who's buying the food that you're going to give away?
My company.
Can I just make a
I've been buying
recommendation?
all the
Can I
food
just
for my
contact the
company.
auditors? I think I now understand what your issue is and let them figure out the accounting. In other words, how to have the accountability.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
So then your
Let's take
company is
this
making
through,
a
because
donation.
now we're saying,
Yeah,
okay,
my-
the Recreation Advisory Board is going to be making decisions about the money.
See, if
And the
everybody would,
Recreation Board-
if everybody would have been reading the minutes like they would have read it, and any of the events that shows there, Creepy Critters Pest Control donates the food. Because I've never asked the rec board, and I've had Commissioner Watts and a couple other commissioners say, well, Dan, you should be taking, if you spent $50 in food and you raised 60, you need to reimburse yourself the $50. And I deliberately didn't do that. If I spent $50 in food and we raised $60, the whole $60 went to the rec board.
All right,
One of the issues that I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
One of the issues that I see is that by ordinance, this is an advisory board. This is not a board that makes decisions. And what I hear in the plan is that the board is going to make decisions where and how that money is going to be spent.
Yeah, no, I'm not in agreement with that.
No,
aspect.
but if you're telling me that that can't be done, I'm then asking you, can I, as a company, pay a fee, whatever the fee is that they charge for an event, have where I sell, I sell my products, of course, from my company, and I happen to serve food, and I say to the people that you can have the food if you can just make a donation, the proceeds will go towards the rec board. I can have it say go to the to the foundation, and then I have to instruct the foundation that I want the money to, because I can tell the foundation where I want my money to be used for. Don't tell me I can't, because I know I can't.
No, you can't.
I can't tell the foundation that I want the money to be used for. When I donate money.
For what?
Well, whatever. If I,
Do you want me to illustrate for you why you can't do that?
Okay,
You want
go
me to
ahead.
give you an example
yeah, please.
of something that you'd like to give the village and the village doesn't want it?
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Anderson wants to.
An X-rated movie. You want to buy an X-rated movie so the kids can watch it.
So you're saying that the food is X-rated movie?
No, I'm saying that's why
That's
you
fine.
can't decide what the money's going to be spent on. You need somebody else to agree with you.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Anderson.
I'd like to ask our attorney a question.
Yes, sir.
On the document that we have, from you of how
Yes.
to do all this, under number 1, do you have a copy?
Yes, I do.
Okay, where it shows number 1, if a board wants to do a fundraising event,
These were alternatives in case you just didn't want to go straight through the nonprofit. Because you have advisory boards,
Right.
they have to first come to you to do any kind of event.
so I mean, I'm looking at it, obviously I need some clarification on it, but doesn't that fall under what we're being asked?
Yes, that's what yes.
So so that defines that if a board wants to do a fundraising event after a motion's passed within the board to move forward with the idea, and the chair of the board would have to go to the next meeting of the commission, submit the idea, and get official commission approval.
For a specific event, yes.
In the presentation to the commission, how the funds collected are to be used is clearly defined. This formal action would meet the criteria of the village of our ordinance 2010-12.
Correct.
So, like I say, I'm just interpreting this myself, that as long as we're asked and we
They
get
are
the
your
information.
advisory board. So if they get the permission from you,
Right.
you've met the intent of your ordinance and they've gotten the authorization to proceed.
So then they could go ahead,
Yes.
and which is, so really it's, the answer's already here.
But then then it says things, how the funds collected are to be used is clearly defined. So if Dan were to come before the board or any other person and say, we want to put this in a fund for fences around the garbage cans, and then the funds could go to that, and so they could choose, right? Is that what?
That's the way, my interpretation, that's the reason why I'm asking you
Remember,
guidance from our
it's a
council.
two-pronged process because it's, yes, they're coming to you, but you still have the only person who has a bank account, and you don't want it commingled with the funds of the village general fund. You need to then go to the nonprofit. But yes, that is step one. Step two, And I think Commissioner Ross was raising the issue just of ensuring that there's accountability for the funds, which we can talk to the auditors
All right,
about.
so let's talk to the auditor on that point, and I think then.
And also, the foundation would have the credibility,
Yeah.
because the money's turned over to the foundation.
Yeah, a couple of other things though I would like to ask. I think that eventually we're going to have to discuss the whole issue of fundraising with all of the boards and the whole issue of the foundation, because this is a laborious process that one has to go through. And I was just thinking with the institution of this new art advisory board, one of the first questions to the board at their first meeting was when.
Excuse me, Commissioner Watts, I hate to do this, but because we're using a different recording system tonight, they need to change the tape.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, I think that we're
We
done
need to
with this issue.
pause. I'm sorry. So they can change the tape.
Okay, are we done with this
No.
issue? All right, we'll take a 5-minute break.
They're using a different